Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 81 of Beer Nuts, the podcast Adjunct series. This evening, we have a banger. We are staying in Kingston, Ontario this week. We have a back-to-back... do they have a name, that region? I don't know. I was going to say Bay Quinte, but maybe not. Either way, we are staying in Kingston. This isn't the brewery that I wanted to... I've been following them for a while online. I managed to get hold of some of their products to a couple friends over the summer. Extremely impressed. Really excited to actually get the full story direct from the gentlemen themselves this evening. Please welcome, guys. We have Ryan and Adam of Daft Brewing in Kingston, and Nathan from NathanDoesBeer and BAOS. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome, boys.
Thanks, guys. How's it going? It's good to be here.
Great to meet you. This is fantastic. Been looking forward to this for quite a while now, man. Thank you both for taking the time and kicking it with us, mate. This is going to be great. We are going to be drinking some super interesting beers tonight. I really appreciate the eclectic, it's not what I expected. I was like, maybe some Crispies or an IPA, because I know that's what you guys are also known for. But we're doing some off-the-wall shit tonight, and I'm excited. We are starting... go on, man.
I was going to say, we decided to throw you some curveballs here with some of the beers.
Yeah, like you guys, with your branding and your social media, like there's definitely a weird vibe with it, and the beer selection that you went with matched that. So I think it's pretty on point.
That's a really good. That's a great point, actually.
It's hard to define our style sometimes because we like to mix it up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dive into that a bit.
Tell us about this one here.
Yeah, what are we drinking?
Yeah, so what we're starting with. This is Ryan I'm the head brewer at Daft. We're starting with what we call Friend. It is a pretty unique beer because it's actually a sour beer cider mix. So it's like a hybrid sour beer cider.
Okay.
So half of it is fresh pressed Ontario apples, and it's fermented with sour beer that we brew in-house. So it's like 51% legally sour beer, and then 49% cider. And then so it's fermented out as if we were making just a sour beer. Mm-hmm. And we finish it with plums. So after fermentation is done, we let primary fermentation finish, and then we re-ferment on plums. And then we take that final plum sour beer cider hybrid, and we put it in a bottle. And so these are big 750 milliliter pop top bottles, and it bottle conditions in there. So it even ferments a little bit more in the bottle. So every time I have this over the last few months, it's gotten a little bit drier every time.
Okay.
So this is the driest one I've had it.
How long does this type of product last, as far as I guess I don't know enough about cider, but I know sour beers can sit for a while, but you've got a clear bottle that can be problematic, but they're sexy, all right? It looks so sick in this, particularly with your labels. And then you got the pop top. So when people, because you just mentioned a few months, hanging on to them, how long do these bad boys last, in this packaging?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I guess we'll see.
Usually we have a pretty solid answer on what lasts for how long. So IPAs don't last very long. Sour beers that are fruited, often they don't age super well if it's a kettle sour, but if it's a barrel aged sour, you generally want you'll age it for a while and it'll evolve with time. This is kind of a unique thing. When was the last time you had a beer cider hybrid?
I don't think
I've never had one before.
Yeah. So that's where the question mark comes in, is how stable is that going to be? And I think, I've had ciders that I've made and aged in my basement for 5+ years, and they do great. But when you fruit something, you now have residual sugar, so you potentially are going to produce more CO2, which is part of the reason why this has a nice, strong, high carbonation bottle. It'll hold 7 volumes of CO2, which is 2 to 3 times as much as a normal beer. So it's stability it's a good question. It's something we're learning about this ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, we really like this one, so it gets frequent QC check-ins, I would say.
I respect that. This is genuinely fantastic. Like I'm as you were sort of talking, I'm like trying to position where this is because obviously, our automatic nature as beer nerds are going to be like, all right, so what is this and how do I classify this and put it in a box? But I kind of feel like it's hitting so many different, checking off so many things. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
this
really
one
is. What? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say this one we only bottled this one, so we didn't keg any. So every ounce that we did ended up in one of these bottles. So we serve this one like a bottle of wines. We'll sell this with serve it with like 2 wine glasses at the brewery.
Ah,
I was gonna chime in with that.
okay,
Oh,
that
that's
makes
cool.
sense. Sorry, Nate.
Yeah, so go ahead. Sorry.
What made you think to add plums to it? Where did that? Because that's an interesting addition when when you've got when you've kind of got the cider and and beer thing. Where did the plums come in?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And a lot of our beers, like, so it's kind of, so it's interesting that this is your adjunct series because that's maybe one of the things that we excel at our brewery. It's more leans into my style, right? So like I'm the type of brewer that adds a lot of shit after the brewing is done. Like, so in the fermenter is what that means. And so this is being the first cider sour beer hybrid we've done. I just did it initially without anything and tasted it along the way. And so you go for this journey as it's fermenting and then as it's settling and then as it's aging. And it was good. It had like the characteristics without the plum. It had the characteristics of a nice dry cider, but it was pretty one dimensional. And so I was looking for a way because this is pretty special to me. Like something like a style like this is really where I want our brewery to produce truly unique, interesting beers. And so I didn't want to release something that I would think is delicious and like good by itself, but may not please crowds. What I wanted is something that's both beautiful and people will just appreciate it. Like they love, like people love our fruited sours and like things like that. So I know additions of more fruit would make it more of a crowd pleaser. So partially sales are part of the reason we added plums, and we knew we were going to put it in these nice clear bottles. So I wanted something that was going to be like pink or purple, like like that, give it a nice hue that would be more appealing. So in the end, I'm very happy with plums because it has that nice depth and complexity. So even as you ferment out the sugar, you get like plums have more like the stone fruits in general. I feel like have more like complexity compared to a lot of like citrus or whatever. So plums, feel like was the right choice more and more as it ages.
It's a really nice addition, as you say. It does add some good dimension to it flavor wise because it's definitely adding some you get the flesh in there, and and it is elevating the tartness of it too, which going along with the cider is pretty leaning into the right direction, and you weren't kidding about that color either. Like that is gorgeous.
Yeah. That's fantastic. It's such a fascinating product. As you were talking, like, and explaining the plums, I'm like, yeah, man, the plums are the money here. Like, it really brings it home. I see what you mean. Like, I feel like it would have, like, that, like, it complements all the other flavors. It's almost like the plums give, like, the apples, the tartness of the apples and the I guess it's just that great sourness from the actual beer side of it, just something to sit on and just kind of, like, balances it out. You're right. It's the perfect fruit for this one, man.
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah, it's good. It adds balance. And for me, as soon as I crack open like the pop top, I immediately smell plums, like right away. It's just like the first thing to hit my nose, and then it's in the aroma. And then you take a sip, and it's like there's plums in there, but it's not like dominated by plum flavor. It tastes to me like a cider with plums, and then like kind of have to like start trying to pull out the beer aspects as I drink it more and more.
Yeah, I definitely get that too. Was this the first one that you guys had done of this particular beer or anything similar to it?
Yeah, on this scale. So like I've done a lot of like practice brews, but this is the first cider sour beer hybrid we've actually done on the big system.
Sick.
To this extent, like we've added cider into other beers as well. Like we've boiled it down and sort of caramelized batches of cider to add it to like our apple whiskey beer and whatnot. But at this ratio, yeah, for sure, this was a lot of cider went into this bad boy. And this is our first time doing lots of things. Like first time with the clear bottle, first time with the swing top. I think this is probably one of our first custom labels that we've done as well.
Okay.
So,
Oh, right on.
yeah, we're still pretty young, and doing lots of things for the first time.
Yeah, man. Look, it's all about that testing, right? And that's definitely a great segue into the we want to get the history of you guys first. Speaking of young, of how you guys both individually got into beer, and then how the brewery came about. Whoever would like to start.
I guess I
sounds
could
like
start just
your wheelhouse.
Yeah, more there from the very beginning. So it would have been, I think, 2016. I was visiting my friend Greg, who we've been friends since we were like 5. I was out in Calgary visiting him, and we went to Vancouver and did a brewery crawl there. So like, I think where we were in the
As one does.
yeah. So in the industrial district, and there was like, so he was kind of showing me the ropes of his favorite breweries, and there was, I think we hit up like 10 in one day, and they were all within walking distance of each other. We had to choose between the 25 that we could have chosen. Like the beer scene there is just off the hook. So at the time,
It was a bit of a vision quest, also.
yeah. So we, things were consumed.
Small little mushroom heads, maybe.
Yeah.
So it was very fun, and but that was sort of what exposed me to the industry as a whole, right? Like I'm going to say, realistically, prior to that, my thoughts of craft beer would have just been that it was smaller batch beer that was more expensive than buying other beers, just because I hadn't really been exposed to it. And then when I was there, it sort of introduced me to what beer could be, and what the beer scene could be like. So as the day progressed, we just kept on drinking and shooting the shit. And I think it was Greg that sort of was like, if I was to start a brewery, here's what I would do. Right, here's how I would watch a brand. Here's what I would do. Here's what I think this brewery's doing great. Here's what I think this one's not doing great, or whatever. So we were just drinks and conversation led to more discussion, and that sort of became the theme of the tour. And then the next day and over the next week or whatever, we were just, I'm going to say we started talking pretty seriously that night as to like if we wanted to look into doing it. And then afterwards, we just started looking into doing it. And the more we learned about it, the more it seemed appealing to us. Like the industry is just super cool and awesome. Like everyone gets along and sort of builds each other up. Like it's competitive, but it's collaborative, right? Like we had a ton of help opening our breweries from all of the breweries that are in our city that would be our like quote unquote competition. So just everything about the industry we fell in love with. And then that was sort of the spark of the idea. And then we knew that we wanted to get a brewer involved early on because we wanted them to sort of be a part of us from the very beginning. So then we posted looking for brewers, and that's how we met Ryan. So Ryan's been with us since the beginning, and he was there for day one of construction and for the next year and a half of construction.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's in a nutshell the core from the beginning. And then I don't know if Ryan, you want to add anything about your history of beer or Daft?
Yeah, we did a lot of construction. We built the place ourselves, and I learned a lot about laying stones and concrete and all the stuff I didn't think I'd be doing, but it was good.
That's crazy
that
you guys built the place yourself. That's that's uncommon. You hear all of the stories about what people go through to like find the space that they brew in. It's you don't usually hear so we built our brewing space and
we thought it was going to be a lot easier than it actually was.
Yeah. It turned out to be a lot more work to convert a disgusting, abandoned, grease-laden car garage to what we have now.
Yeah. But yeah, just jumping back into it. Before I was with these guys, I was a scientist, so my background's in geology and geochemistry, and was working a lab job, and I was looking like I was moving back to Kingston and looking to like change pace. I didn't really like being in a lab every day, and I'd been brewing beer for like years and years amateurly. Like so, as long as I've been training as a geologist, which is quite a long time now, I've been brewing beer, and so like for about almost 15 years now. So as an amateur for like 12 of those years, so I grew up. I was born in California, but grew up a lot of my young adult life in Wisconsin, where we didn't have access to a lot of the cool beers I kept hearing about from my family on the West Coast. Right. So everybody's talking about these IPAs, these West Coast IPAs that are popping up, and like occasionally I would get like a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale if I were lucky. Like, and so because I couldn't get my hands on the beers and I kept hearing about them, I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to try to make it myself. And so like that's kind of how I got started brewing beer, and just tried to make some like weird things. Like I think my very first beer was a chocolate coffee wormwood stout at like 11% alcohol, and it was just terrible.
It's bold.
It was like soup. My friends still drank it though because we're all in undergrads.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, sweet
so,
alcohol.
Yeah, you drink what you can at that age.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Doesn't matter how it tastes.
But the more I think about it, that was the best start for me because it's just been experimental from the beginning, right? So what can I add to beer? What has sugar in it that I can ferment? What can I blend with beer? What sort of adjuncts can I use? Although at that point I didn't call them adjuncts, I just called it random shit at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Cool. So that continued. Yeah, that continued for a while. I started entering some like competitions just to actually see if my beers were good. And because your friends always say they're delicious because they're getting free beer, so obviously it's good. And so entered competitions and learned some hard lessons, and then started winning some awards and got to brew at a couple big breweries in Ontario. I'm like, I really like this. So the timing worked out perfectly where I was coming back to Kingston. I was in Quebec City for a couple of years. Coming back to Kingston, met up with Adam, chatted. We got along really well, and we just kept chatting, and timing worked out perfectly, where I started doing construction the day we got back.
Yeah.
Amazing. And
Yeah,
that was
cool.
What year was the construction started? Was that 2017, 2018?
So I think it was 2018. So we spent a long time writing a business plan and trying to find a location.
Right.
And when we landed ours, it was probably, I think it was around summer of 2018. And then it was in like rough shape, and we were, it took us forever to get permits. So we could only get so far on the space before we had permission from the city to do so, which was a nightmare to get. So 2018 was when we were in there, like cleaning, pressure washing, like getting it not disgusting, basically. And then so we opened in January of 2020. So I guess we were kind of like a year and a half from when we got the keys to when we opened our doors.
Okay. So then now it's like you're coming up on the 2-year anniversary starting next year then. Okay. So.
Yep.
Okay, and then when you opened up, whereabouts in Kingston are you guys, by the way?
So we're on Princess Street.
Oh, you're on Princess.
Yeah, so we're not quite downtown. If you're heading to downtown from anywhere in Kingston, then you will pass us about 3 minutes before you would hit where downtown starts, I would say.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. All right.
It's going to be like the cool and trendy area in like 3 years. Like high rises are going in now, and like it's a little rough, like mostly like used car lots and like auto garages and some money marts and a couple methadone clinics. And so like
I know the vibes.
Yeah. But it's up and coming. Like, it's cool. Like it's sweet to be there now because we have like a really cool art scene. And so that ties in really well to like building up this community that there's some great like neighborhoods around us, like lots of families that live just north and south of us. And so it's really growing into something beautiful. So it's nice to be here when it's not quite beautiful and get a little street cred. And then like 5 years, be like, we've been here since the beginning, man.
Yeah, bro. When it was affordable. Yeah, I
And
love
with and with that kind of vibe of the neighborhood, you guys are definitely you guys definitely kind of have the right aesthetic for that, with those like big colorful murals on the like on the walls, really like leans into the art scene kind of vibe. So, which actually leads me to my next question, and probably kind of one of the main questions that I think a lot of people would love to ask is, can you can you tell the story about kind of how you came up with the vibe of the brewery? Because it's obviously very unique. Like you guys are obviously showcasing some. Like a different kind of aesthetic than than what a lot of breweries would do, with it being very colorful, very kind of quirky and goofy, and that very much like shines through in all of your social media and everything like that. So can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah. So originally, when we were writing our business plan, we're actually going to be called Hello World Brewing. So my one partner, Greg, he is a computer programmer, so that's what Hello World is derived from. And then, so when he was first showing me his idea for the branding, like I was intrigued by the I'll say the simplicity of the code, but also the color palette. Like it sort of got the different, I don't know, what to me looks like 80s sort of retro colors over like a matte black background. So that aspect of it we really liked, and we wanted to maintain when we stopped being Hello World. So we switched to Daft because we always kind of wanted to be like fun and inclusive and joke around and silly, and it didn't really line up with anything to do with Hello World. So Daft just sort of means like silly, ridiculous, preposterous, and it allowed us to sort of play that up a little bit, right? So that's a bit where like Daft came from. It's sort of just how we wanted to be seen and viewed. Like we didn't want to be pretentious or take ourselves too seriously, just because
The name, sorry, the
Ryan
name
and I
ties in pretty well to like us quitting our jobs that actually paid pretty well to become little brewers.
Yeah. My one partner, Shane, would say that Daft would come from just a bunch of us idiots that don't know what we're doing and have no rightful mind to start a brewery at the tip of gentrification in a sketchy neighborhood in Kingston. But
right before a pandemic too.
Yeah, we knew that was coming.
Yeah, little did you know as you were building all of this up.
Yeah, but so we always knew, like, the one thing we wanted to do was to create a brewery that if you were to do a tour in town, then I would say, like us or hate us, you would remember us, right? And hopefully there's little of the hating us. But so even when we were in Vancouver, like we went to I don't know if you guys are familiar with Storm, but it's just this kind of crazy brewery. It's got this huge mural on the side of it with a bunch of like crazy rats that are in this lab, and you walk in, it's just got this weird vibe. You go into any brewery, like when we're on our tour, where we were just kind of figuring it out as we went along, and we were like, where would you recommend we go? And every brewer is like, well, you got to go to Storm, right? So I say, yeah. So part of us sort of, in my mind, that's what we want to be, right? So I remember we did at a conference, we did a branding sort of exercise, and the guy was talking about how a lot of breweries are sort of just like a hyper masculine man cave, like that either is wood everywhere or trying to replicate a basement, and that's also not what we wanted, right? So hence the massive murals, the sort of 80s Miami vibe, and then dive into the local art community, which we are continuously diving deeper into. I don't know if that's a long-winded answer to your question.
No, that's great. I want to just
that's cool.
Add to that as well, like the branding itself. So you talked about the vibe, which I think is key. The branding, like the thing that stuck out when I first saw you guys online, it's like, God damn, this is like, why haven't I heard of this before? Because like beer branding as like a marketer, like I'm really passionate about beer branding that's thoughtful and interesting and engaging, which is exactly what this is here. Like you explained it perfectly, Adam, with the matte black background, the pinks, the blues, the yellows. Like this stands out. You go to if you saw this on the shelf somewhere, you would grab it. You drive past it in the street and it looks like this on the outside, you're gonna be like, what the fuck is that? Where did the idea for that? I mean, you kind of touched on that with the Hello World thing. You already kind of had that, but then how did that grow into what it is now? Say with the flamingo specifically, because that's a really very convenient because there's an emoji for that which you can rock with. And like I'm not gonna joke. Like when we've come up with names for some of our companies and things that we do, we've thought about what emojis could be used by that brand. And I love that when I'm talking. I think it's just like it's obviously just culture today, right? Like. And I don't know if it was intentional, but it was one of the things. Whenever I probably only had maybe 4 or 5 of beers prior to this, but it's been super easy if I want to share it to stories or write in the caption. I can always chuck a flamingo in there because it looks cool and it's I don't know, something about it is so dope to me. I just love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I'd say to be crass, Greg, who is my partner and does all of our branding, just has a big old boner for flamingos. Would probably been the starting point.
But an episode name?
Yeah, so
maybe not.
We went a little deeper than just Greg's fetish for flamingos, and I would say that it sort of just matched a bunch of things. Like a flamingo is just kind of like a goofy sort of animal. We wanted a mascot, just like a way that you could see us, and I identified Daft as a brand. And so, in theory, if you see a flamingo in the world of beer, then you would just think of us, even if it doesn't say Daft anywhere, right? And then also just, the color, like, so our sort of main 2 colors would be the pink and teal, and so it just sort of matched that as well. There's a video of Planet Earth that shows a bunch of male flamingos walking around in unison to this stupid music, just doing their mating ritual, just like walking, and they're just going like this, and just looks ridiculous. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, yeah, Greg, yeah, we'll do flamingos. That convinced me. Yeah, and then what else can I say about the flamingo? Probably that's it for that. That I'm gonna say, like, as far as our labels or branding in a whole, there was definitely some inspiration from some other breweries, just as far as their success in what they're doing. So the 2 that I could jump out would be Collective Arts and Flying Monkeys. I think they both do 2 things incredibly well. It's very unique and art forward. But if let's say I'm at the LCBO and I'm standing 10 feet away from any beer shelf, I could look at any one of their beers and say, that is Collective Arts, that is Flying Monkeys. I would not get them confused for one of 10 of other, 10 different breweries or whatever. So we sort of wanted to try and create something that would be that for us as well. So even if we've got one of our one-off labels, ideally it would still be somehow associated to be easily recognizable to something that we pumped out.
That's great. That's such a great parallel, particularly those 2 breweries that I'm just visualizing as you said it, and those 2 are very distinct. The other one I thought you were going to say was that one of the beers one of my mates was in PEC over the summer, so he was there. And I'm like, I went to your website. I was like, grab me this. And one of them was the pills, the cool, which I imagine is from the Lonely Island thing when he's like, cool. No?
From the Lonely Island?
I think it's Lonely Island, isn't it? It's
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
You're thinking of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The other Sandberg.
My bad. The other one.
Yeah.
Okay. Love that. Sick name. But that reminds me of Other Half, where, like, if you have, like, their, the broccoli or the, what's the one? Those weird name beers, I haven't had them in so long because I don't go anywhere anymore, but those beers where they just have, like, the pattern, because you had the flamingo, like, they did it, like, 5-6 times across the label, and that reminded me a lot of those. And those beers obviously have a very distinct, image in that world. I know, obviously, you're referring to Canadian stuff, but that reminded me of that a bit as well, in a completely awesome way that just really stood out. And also you use high quality, like this metallic backing. You can sort of see through the back of the thing here, you got the metallic back, which obviously the shine on the labels, that also really stood out to me. The fact that you guys, obviously these are significantly more expensive than the straight paper ones or whatever. So
I'm going to say we almost couldn't have chosen a more expensive label. But I think they look nice, so
I love it. No, that's great. Okay, sick. That makes sense with the flamingo. So someone else, Nate, if I just jump in, since we're talking about the beginning stuff, I wanted to hear about what you opened with, like the beers that you opened with in January last year. but also sort of what was the intention? You touched on it like earlier. I don't even remember if it was on the call or beforehand when we were talking about the cider blend and stuff. You wanted to do very unique beers that kind of stood out. But what going into it? Every brewery has their kind of we're going to be a haze brew. We're going to be just doing that, or we're going to make farmhouse. We're doing barrel aged. Like, what was your intention as well behind the products that you're going to put out, particularly under a brand this eclectic that is this sort of unique and that stands out among, particularly in the region. I feel like it's like you've gone 10x more standing out. If you did this in Toronto, it would stand out, but you did it in Kingston, which is a growing scene. Obviously, Bay of Quinte getting to Belleville and Prince Edward County and stuff is really growing right now, and there's some really great stuff happening in that whole region, which makes me very happy. But I think what you've done makes it's even bolder move out there. So, yeah, just be curious on what you guys, what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah,
Ryan, you want to tackle this one?
Our initial vision on what we wanted to do for our style of beers, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good question. On a broad scale, it's a lot of what you were just saying. So, how can we create something that's actually new, something that isn't just a stout with cinnamon buns in it or something like that. Which don't get me wrong, I'll drink the hell out of that. But how do we make something that's completely unique? And so that was one aspect of it's part of what we do. It's not like we make crispy boys. I drink crispy boy nearly every day. You want to end your day with something light and easy. So we make them because we drink them and we know people want to drink them. We make IPAs, and I love IPAs. I'm a hazy boy. I love New England style IPAs. We make a lot of those. But if you're really going to probably fall into our category of how, and I think this is the community has put us into this category more and more. We're largely known as a sour beer brewery. And that's mostly fruited sours, sour IPAs, and just very unique styles in the sour realm.
I know that.
And so it's I find sour beers to be we can make them pretty well. We're pretty experienced making sour beer, so that helps to have that base knowledge. But I find them to be a great platform to create truly unique things, right? And not only that, but it's something. Sour beers they have a bad rap with a lot of people, but they're also a gateway for a lot of people to drink beer. So wine drinkers. I don't want to say women or men, but it is a draw for a lot of wine drinkers and a lot of I'm going to say it even though I don't want to, a lot of women to get into the beer drinking world, and which isn't it's not like it was 20 years ago where beers for men and so there are a lot of women drinking beers. But this is a great gateway for people that prefer wine because it has a lot of similarities, and I don't think they know that they don't necessarily have to know that these similarities what they are. They just know that they like it for a reason. But sour beers have almost the same pH as wine. They are drier, so less residual sugar in the beer, which leans for me into less hangovers. And they're often fruitier on that side, like a wine or whatever cocktail, things like that. So what I find is I try to make beers that I want to drink myself, and my favorite beers are pink beers and purple beers and things with fruit in them, and basically how do I make every beer we make taste like juice? A lot of it falls into that realm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's one of those things of as the beer world was kind of getting a bit more experimental, you'd get and you guys probably get this a lot from from people who are less less craft beer drinkers. They're thinking well, this beer doesn't look like beer, or or this beer doesn't taste like beer. It's kind of pushing the boundaries of what of what beer can be, because like like so many people don't know, sour beer is not like a new hip trendy thing. Like so that like sour beers have actually like are actually a pretty ancient style. It's
Mm.
just this is just kind of the modern iteration of like of sour beers, and you guys like kind of really going like extra like really extra just kind of with what kind of juicy flavors you can create, and how to how do we make one that's like bright orange and and things like that. It's like you say, it's a platform, it's a canvas. Like like there's really like with whatever you want to add to it, there's so much you can like that beer can really be, and beer can really taste like. It really is kind of like a blank canvas.
Yeah, there's a million
absolutely.
different ways you can go, and flavor profile, alcohol, sweetness, bitterness. Like you can hit all the senses.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my wife loves our sours because exactly that. She says they don't taste like beer, right? So she's not like a lager person. Yeah, but so when we first opened, this would go into the realm of things that we didn't want to do, and we recognized that a lot of breweries, at least at the time, seemed to open up and they would have the same different versions of the same four beers. They would have a stout or a dark beer, an IPA, a pale ale, and then a red or something like that, right? So
Yep.
we sort of didn't want to just follow that trend as well. So up until what, like 2 weeks ago, a month ago, we did not have a mainstay. So there was never
Like a
a
flagship.
beer that would be So and we just got our first not that long ago, and then we'll see what's on the horizon. So I'm gonna say we've had what, like 70, 60, Ryan, individual styles of beers in the 2 years that we've been open.
Yeah, it's around there. We're on our nearly 100th batch, and
Sick.
most of those were individual, like not repeats.
Okay. And was that an intentional approach? Because that's fascinating. Well, it's fascinating, but it's also, I guess, it's kind of common that people don't really have flagships because they can get kind of overlooked and like, oh, that beer is always around, and that's the one that you'd probably pop in the LCBO to to grow that brand awareness and to sort of tap into a whole new market. Um, so I understand both the criticisms of it, but the pluses of it. What made you guys decide to finally, after nearly 2 years, to be like, yo, let's pick a flagship? And what was it, by
Boring enough, it's a light lager. So
It's
That's
beer.
cool.
It's that
Fair
beer we
naked light
love to
lager, yeah.
drink.
So it's just it's we instead of having a beer that is consistently available, what we aim to do is have a beer, something that would fit into a certain beer category or beer style. So we would always want to have an easy drinker. So that might be a dry hop pilsner, it might be a grisette, it might be a light lager, but like we need to have an easy drinker. We need to have something that guy comes in and I only drink Bud Light. What do you got for me? Give me a beer that's a beer. So we got to have that. And then so the light lager just sort of checked all the boxes, and then ultimately there was just a demand for it. There was I think it probably started because there was a restaurant in town, Shady Piggy, that just we've been on tap there for a bit, and they just sort of wanted to replace a different tap that they had, and they wanted something consistent. And up until this time, I'm going to say we would have had, I've heard it been called like a rotating tap or a black tap before, where instead of us having the same, like we might own that tap, but it would be different beer all the time, but they wanted the same thing consistent over and over. So it just sort of became it's time. This is what they want. We really like it. So let's run with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that
And
cool?
see, you're absolutely right that it was like there's some challenges that come with rotating your beers all the time. Like it's what we love to do. We love to make new beers all the time, and we've got a customer base now that loves it. Like whenever we have a new beer release, it's like people are there. Like when we post it on Instagram, like so, it's pretty great because our Instagram following is pretty nice. Like it's grown significantly, way faster than we thought it would. And I think that has a large part to do with it because that's how we announce our new beer. That's how we announce what's happening in the brewery. But yeah,
it's a logistical nightmare, but it's how we like to drink.
When you have restaurants that just want to have the same menu for the next 6 months, like you can't change your beer every 2 months.
Yeah.
And so we knew we'd fall into this eventually. And I think I'm happy we did it this way because we've made probably like 15 different versions of light beers, and this is by far the best one. And so if we decided to keep the grisette we started with, it's a good beer, but it's not as crisp as this light lager. It's not as refreshing. And if we're gonna make this our refreshing crispy boy, then make it as crispy as you can.
Hell yeah, man.
So that's what this beer's turned into.
Okay.
And you might have said this. I may have lost it in the audio. What was the name of the light lager that you guys keep?
We call it
Bare Naked.
which
Bare Naked.
plays
Okay.
in a little bit to our fruited sour series, which we call Never Nude. So Bare Naked is like kind of the growth from that.
I love it.
Right.
So
That's amazing.
it's one of our. I'll say it's a lot of our beers have some sort of addition or some second element going on to it, and this was just bare naked. It is what it is. There's nothing else going on with it.
I love that.
Yep,
That's amazing.
that makes sense. That's good, consistent naming there. You just reminded me of something because with Never Nude, that's one of those things of every time you release that, there's always some very interesting Instagram posts on there. Who on the team is it who's willing to dress up as Tobias from Arrested Development there?
Everybody's volunteering for it.
Yeah. I think there's been maybe 6 of us so far, and Ryan's on deck. So if you
oh really?
if you feel like vomiting in about a month, then keep.
You don't want to see this hot bod?
Oh yeah. Of course we do, Ryan. Of course we do. God damn it.
Thank you. The problem is I take the photos. So if I'm not taking the photos, how am I supposed to trust the person to take good photos of me?
Yeah, that's a problem.
That's a conundrum
That's a
right
challenge.
there.
It's always everybody your whole life, Ryan, that's been taking the photo. It's not you.
I blame them for sure.
Yeah.
On that note,
it's funny.
Go on. Sorry, man.
When we, I was gonna say whenever we post them, like usually those are pretty popular. We get a lot of activity on our social media platform when we do a Never Nude shoot, and like clockwork, every time we do it, we probably lose about 5 followers before we gain another 10.
Yeah, like the hour we post it, we lose. Just so people know, if they aren't
watch it go down.
Yeah,
let's try to give
an
an example.
Familiar with Never Nude, it's a reference to Arrested Development. There's a character, Tobias Flinke. Sorry, everyone. He is a never nude, which means that underneath his clothes, even his underwear, he wears jean cut-off shorts. And so
that guy, the bald guy.
Yeah, when he's completely nude, he's wearing jean cut-off shorts. So Never Nude Series is the name of our sour beer series, a fruited sour beer series. And so every time we release a fruited sour, a Never Nude, we have another staff member that, always men so far, that are posing in these jean cut-off shorts, just completely nude otherwise. And I take all the photos, so I have so many naked photos of our staff on my phone.
Yeah.
Do you have HR?
Ryan.
Yeah, we're HR. So.
You're HR?
Yeah.
You're safe. You're good. Everyone's happy. That's incredible. I love it. On that note, do you guys feel like going for the next one? Cracking something pretty crazy. I mean, really want to try this next beer. I know we're all kind of like, this is like so crushable. I had to like chill because just nyammed it up. It's gold.
There's a lot of beer in there too.
Yeah, well, it's just going down at 6%, but it's so damn smooth. And this is my first beer of the night. I always make sure not to drink before podcast so I can go hard.
Good for you.
I know, right?
Yeah, that would have been smart.
You know. I'm a vampire, so to me, it's okay. It kind of works out in my timing. This is about the time I start drinking anyway, so it worked well. I'm going to go grab that beer. Do you have to grab it too, Nate?
Yeah, I do.
All right, you know what? You grab it first.
You go ahead first.
I'll be 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
Yeah, sure.
Tell us about the beer in the meantime.
Yeah. Tell us about Crunchy Grove, this bright orange carrot beer.
Yeah. Crunchy Groove.
Crunchy Groove, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a common one. It's a common mistake. So the reference so all just quickly before we get into that, all of our beer names are references to some sort of popular culture. And so
Yeah, I've noticed
Crunchy
that.
Brew is a reference to South Park, like when all the hippies move into town, or they're there for some huge
Okay.
festival or something, and so they're all just like riffing on some crunchy grooves, man. So they're just playing some like jam band, Grateful Dead music, and so this is our naturalist beer, we call it. It's it's basically healthy. That's unofficial. That's not a stance that Daft is taking, but it's basically healthy. It's a carrot beer, but really it's made with carrots, and we forage spruce tips every spring, so those are in here, and a
Jesus.
lot of fresh ginger that we peel ourselves. Half of my job is peeling either citrus or ginger.
Why do you have to peel the ginger? Is it bitter
The
or something?
peel, yeah, the peel has a lot of like bitterness, especially if you boil it. But also like you got to be careful with ginger. Like I'm not sure if you ever heard of ginger bug, but it's
No.
basically lactobacillus or bacteria. If you're making pickles, lacto pickles at home, a lot of times people will just say use a little ginger bug, cut off a piece of ginger, toss it in there, it'll start fermentation. And what that means is it's covered in bacteria. And so if you don't peel it
shit.
and or boil it hard, you're going to infect your beer with a ton of bacteria. So ginger is kind of like one of those ones that usually just goes into the boil.
Interesting.
This is a lesson that you learned firsthand before you, as a home brewer.
It is.
Ryan?
One of my first ginger beers turned sour, which was actually a blessing because that was one of the first sour beers I really loved. And now look at me, I'm like a sour beer brewer. But yeah, we're actually going to make the sour ginger beer at the brewery next month.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
So it's like a sour base with ginger, and that's it?
Yeah, so a ton of ginger. So we use ginger as accents in a few different beers, but this beer is like if you've ever had a ginger beer, like an actual like ginger beer, not the soda or the pop or whatever. It's alcoholic and it's got a nice heat to it, and warmth. This beer is like that, so it has a ton of ginger, so you'll get some warmth on your throat, but the sourness like really dries out the beer, and the tartness plays into the earthiness. So as long as you don't go too sour in the beer, it's a really nice, delicate balance across the palate. But if you go too sour, it's a lot. It becomes hot,
can be pretty
spicy,
intense,
and low, mouth burning.
Yeah. I start off.
And I think you've hit that here because it really is not too intensely sour. There's a little bit there, but it's not too overpowering, and yeah, like the ginger really does shine.
This one is actually, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, this one is actually, so I was mostly describing another beer in the future. This one is actually it's not quite a sour beer. It's like it falls in the middle ground between a regular beer and a sour beer. It's got a pH probably around 4.39, somewhere in there. So it's in the middle ground, but it's nice perception to pull that out actually.
Yeah.
I start every day with ginger tea. Like I grate ginger and I've got cayenne pepper and I pour that in there and then I boil it up for like 15 minutes and then I chuck in some lemon, and that's like it just clears you out for the start of the day. So I fucking love ginger, so I was very happy to have that in here. And I know it's a bit of a polar, like my girlfriend can't stand it, but so I'm making her sneeze in the morning because of kind of what you were saying. I imagine as soon as you were talking about it, you're like, oh, when you boil it up, it does. I'm like, yo, because I just get the ginger. I don't peel it. I just like grate it up, chuck it in a pot, throw on some cayenne, and boil that bad boy up. And I'm sneezing. My nose is already running before I even drink it. It's wicked. I love it. It just clears you out. So like, it's fascinating to hear that the skin actually can cause some stuff. And ginger's not the easiest thing to peel because it's got the little grooves because they're all little like fingers or whatever that are growing on the damn thing. So that's,
oh my gosh, it's a lot of work. And it's done by hand, right?
Oh gosh, craft beer, guys. It's not a joke. This beer is one of the most unique beers I've had in quite some time. I mean, like the color on this is kind of like a slightly pink orange, completely kind of like carrot juice. The head dissipated pretty quick. I imagine that's because of the fruit and the vegetable kind of content in there.
Yeah, and the pH, maybe like a sour beer often
They go
gets
pretty
lower
quick.
head retention. Yeah.
I'm definitely kind of getting.
I would
Go
chalk
on.
it down to Ryan's skill as a brewer.
Poor head retention.
Yeah,
Pretty
just,
much.
I think he's gonna say poor hygiene. I was like, yeah.
It's a different issue.
While
too.
we're on the subject, Ryan.
We have a shower at the brewery, and I don't know if that's a subtle hint or what.
Now, this is crazy. So what do we like? Okay, so it's ginger, the forage spruce tips, and the carrots. So I feel like carrots in and of themselves in a juice format don't really produce a lot of flavor. It's probably more for the color. I imagine there's probably the earthiness from that, which is then accentuated by the spruce tips are subtle though. Like you didn't go overboard, which I appreciate because those things can be hit or miss. And even the ginger's pretty chill. Everything's pretty like tame here, like in a nice balanced way. That's not like you read the label, and it can either be like, oh my god, that's fascinating, or like get that away from me. I guess depending on what you're into. This does not. I feel like the people who even wouldn't be interested in it on paper would not be offended at all. It's much smoother and much sort of more, I guess balanced. Maybe is the word. Than
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. That's it's taken a long time to get a carrot beer to a point where people enjoy it.
That's fair.
And it's something I've been working on for like 10 years.
Oh, okay. So this was a bit of an experiment from your home brewing days to to get it to this point that it was releasable at the brewery.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, anything with sugar in it, I tried to ferment, and I did ferment.
Yeah. Oh, see, well, okay, so see that kind of experimentation is paying off then, because this is this is just awesome to to have a beer that's like this crazy looking, but still is still able to is able to taste this interesting and kind of be that intriguing. That's that's well done.
Yeah, man.
Thanks. Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, Carrot beer is a little scary in the name.
It is. When
Ryan has been Ryan has been wanting to brew a carrot beer for so long, since before day one. I feel like that's the only reason Ryan wanted to be a brewer, was so he could brew a carrot beer. So when we first were meeting Ryan and chatting with him, he brought a bunch of beers over, and we obviously really enjoyed them. And then again, before we opened, one of the beers that Ryan... Oh, no, this was before we opened, but after we had brought you on, you did a bunch of carrot beer experiments. And my one partner, Shane, he enjoys to drink, and throwing a drop of alcohol down the drain is utter blasphemy. And he must have had
he's one of
the original carrot beers in his fridge for 2 years.
And they were not good. They were not good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of failed experiments that behind this carrot beer.
I think that's part of the journey with this. You don't have a choice. There's not really like a predecessor that you can mimic. I remember finding one here in Quebec when I first moved here. I didn't really... It was like 2012, 2013 when I tried it. Like a long time ago, but I'd never really seen it since. So when Nate was going there this summer, I was like, dude, get the carrot beer. And he's like, yeah, definitely. And that was the one beer I was fascinated by. We have a bit of a joke amongst our beer media friends of like hashtag team innovation in beer, because a lot of the beer purists don't like innovation. They get mad at smoothie sours and lactose and fun. God damn it. Mm-hmm. So this to me, I just like anyone I appreciate and value a brewery that will give something like this a try. And fortunately, like, you guys pulled this off. This is fantastic. It's I didn't really know what to expect looking at it, reading about it. And now I'm trying, I'm like, wow, you just really sort of made this nice little concoction work. It's not over the top, but I just appreciate the fact you even, swung for it and gave it a crack, like it's not super common that people would probably give something like this a try, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the more polarizing beers that we've done. And this one, I think, like, even if I feel like almost by default, your mind doesn't go to, oh, carrot beer, this is going to taste fantastic. So even even the even the people that like might not love it, I think like they would say, oh, it tastes better than I thought it would, right? Or but then some people, it's just a home run. It's their like favorite beer that we've ever done.
Interesting.
So I can say this one. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead and finish, Adam.
Oh no, you go.
Okay. No,
nothing important.
I was just gonna say, like, because there's not really like a reference point for carrot beers, it's not gonna be something that most people have tried. So you're either going to get one of two reactions. You're gonna think carrot beer, what the fuck is that? I'm not even gonna touch that. Or you're gonna get you're gonna get someone saying like carrot beer, that's fucking weird. I want to try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the people we're after.
So,
The latter.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so the one thing I don't want to like category I don't want to fall in, and I think that we go out of our way to avoid this is doing something just to be gimmicky, right? Like throwing a I don't know, whatever, like a dozen pumpkin pies into a pumpkin beer just to do it, right? So I think Ryan, I'll give him credit where credit is due, is when he brews a beer, he's thinking about the overall balance and trying to like have it come together as a whole, right? So this isn't just oh, we should throw carrots in a beer to make it orange because people will buy it. This is Ryan dying to brew a carrot beer for 10 years and then working tirelessly to figure out how to make it work.
Well, and that's an important distinction to make, right? Because it's like especially now, like with a lot of the hype chasing that goes on, that goes on in this industry. I think it's easy for some for some brewers and for for some hype chasers to kind of lose their minds over something like, oh, this is this has marshmallow fluff and or like you say like pumpkin pie in it or whatnot. But it's it's good to ride that fine line of here's something is that's quirky, but we've actually gone to great lengths to make sure that it tastes good.
Yeah.
I think part of the fascination for me came from the very first time I made carrot beer. I tasted it. I'm like, this tastes nothing like carrots. I can't, after all of the sugar was fermented out, because that's what happens during fermentation, for those that don't quite know. Sugar is eaten by the yeast and produces alcohol and CO2. And so when you're done fermenting, all the sugar's gone. So what does a carrot taste like without sugar? That was an experience I had never had before. And Cee, you said it earlier, and I was surprised when you said it. Earthy. It's very, very earthy. Carrots taste like let's cut the bullshit. They taste like dirt. So how do you make a beer that tastes like dirt taste delicious? And so for me, it's lean into the other earthy but much more rich, flavorful things. So ginger is very earthy, but also spice and lots of other subtle things going on there. And then spruce tips are very, very earthy to me, but have that twang of a pine tar kind of thing. So balancing those three things was the compromise I made to make a carrot beer. I had to add other things in the end.
I love that. I wanted to actually ask, what's the format of the carrots? Are you juicing it and then putting carrot juice in, or are you just chucking in bad boys in?
Yeah, it's we do a combination of things at the brewery with our fruit, and so depending on the batches. So this one is actually it's a carrot puree basically.
Puree.
So
okay.
Yeah.
So it's not are you doing like the puree? I know exactly what you're talking about, like any other fruit. I didn't know you could get carrot and puree. I thought it was like raspberries and shit. But
I think you can get just about anything.
I just didn't know that you could get carrots like that. That's fascinating. So then you put, and that I guess it has the sugars in it, but when you're boiling it, whether you're boiling it or whatever you're doing with it, it would remove residual sugars and go from there. As opposed to what you were saying with the ginger. So therefore, the next question is, why use puree for the carrots when you use the real ginger that you have? I mean, I guess if you use your own carrots, you gotta fucking sit there and peel them bitches. Yeah,
it's a good question. It's it comes down to how the fruit comes through in the beer. And so ginger puree is it's not something I've used before because I prefer if I can to do it myself. Like so we try to get flavors as close to like from fresh as possible. So we don't use extracts, we don't use flavorings like religiously.
Good.
And and we don't use ingredients that have those things in them. Um, but so like we peel ginger because I know it works really well. But with carrots, I've tried them a few different ways. So I've just chopped them up, like and put them in the boil, and you get carrot flavor, but you don't get like the texture. I've juiced them, but when you separate the juice from the solids, you ferment out most of the sugar and you lose most of the flavor. And so it's very hard for us to make a puree on our own. We don't have like the machinery to like grind it all up and like have it all in like one mass as in like as fine as they can do it. So like we deal when we want purees, we deal with like trusted sources of fruit products, basically, like where it's just the fruit that's aseptic. So like it's basically like the fruit and then pasteurized.
Love it. That's awesome, man. The other thing, though, how have people, and you guys kind of touched on it, like, what's been the general response? Because this is a pretty extreme beer as far as, like, and tell me if I'm stretching here, like, in a place like Kingston, that maybe you guys don't have the same volume of craft beer nerds as somewhere like Montreal or Ottawa or Toronto does. Obviously, it's growing the fact that you guys and a bunch of other fantastic breweries are really operating out of there. How do people respond to this? What's the vibe? Are they like... Is it pretty down the middle, or is it like extreme to either side? What's the deal?
Yeah, that's a good question. Adam, you could go ahead.
Oh, I think it's been pretty good. Like our bottles sold out relatively quickly. Like we had to set them aside pretty early when we were chatting with you guys just to make sure that we didn't sell out because they're all gone now. So I would say that yeah. But it's been reasonably good. Like, I think when people see a orange beer come out, they instinctually think, what is that? And then they want to try it. And then I think that it's one of those things. I think that regardless if you would like it or not, you would like to try it once for a lot of the adventurous crowd, which I would say has become sort of the crowd that might come to Daft more often. And so I think it's been, I don't want to say surprisingly well received, but I think it's been reasonably well received.
You could say it. It's fine. Just to add on to that, I think that's a big part of it. Like people that are curious and want to try it. So those are largely our bottle sales. Or like they'll come and buy a pint or whatever. But what I think is that in Kingston, it's kind of been treated like this like safe place. We don't want to be too experimental with a lot of restaurants, with a lot of everything. Like so we have this kind of like old guard in Kingston where there's a lot of like, I don't want to talk trash, but like there is a lot of like older style like supper clubs and things like that have just survived forever and ever because people didn't want to really experiment or like go out on a limb. But now like there are like there's like a new Kingston vibe that's happening right now. Like it's not just breweries. It's like there's restaurants that are popping up and they're being like super out there. There's like just people that are doing like artists. There's an art scene that's really growing. Like there's a ton of like young, trendy vibe that's like kind of developing on its own. I think a lot of it's like people see what's happening in Toronto and Montreal and like wherever, Vancouver, the States, and they want to be part of it. It reminds me of me in Wisconsin when I was hearing about all those delicious beers happening on the West Coast and I couldn't do it. So people keep hearing about it here and now people are making it happen. And so what I think is we're filling this void where like there are these people here. They might not be as obviously as big a group as like in Toronto or wherever. But we have young people that want to spend money on unique experiences and unique products, and we were surprised by it too. The response. I think we were all just like, okay, let's go into this without flagships. Let's go into this and make sour beers. Why not? And like those are our best selling beers, man. Like
Hmm.
people come in when we make new things, right? Every single time. It's like those, like, people want the new stuff.
Yeah,
So
I think you're right that the scene is like it's definitely been growing. Like it's no accident that that like in the same year you guys and Fine Balance a little like a little ways away or like opened up in the same year, and like you guys are like are maybe like less than 10 minutes down the road from Stone City, who are one of the OGs in the city. Like they've been around for a little while. They've got a bit of a different style, but not far from there's like a third wave Australian style like cafe like that's opened up. Like
Yeah, North Side, they're fantastic. Part of New
North
Kingston.
Side.
that's exactly the ones like the one I'm referring to, and like that's a sign of of that kind of creativity like just in the general market being on the rise, you know.
That's awesome. I went to actually,
Yeah.
I was going to tell you guys afterwards. I'm going to Prince Edward County in a couple of weeks, so I was going to come see you guys. But
Sweet.
that got me excited because one thing I found, and this is kind of touching on what Nate was just saying, but also what you guys were saying earlier about the new thing. I'm really big on third wave coffee. So is Nate. I imagine you guys might be into that as well. And I found that in Prince Edward County proper, there was one place that had pilot beans from Toronto in Picton that did Montreal or Toronto level quality coffee, and that was the one thing I felt like, because the beer's getting really good in this whole region, but coffee was lacking. So I just found Northside. I'm just saying this to my girlfriend now, but like, yeah, we need to go here.
Yeah,
that's
they're
sick.
fantastic.
I love hearing that. The thing I wanted to just sort of like expand on from what we were just saying was like, okay, so I love hearing what you just said, Ryan, about that Kingston has this new wave of people and you know, you guys and Fine Balance and these cafes and these like restaurants and the art scene and all this stuff that's really this new blood and this new vibe into what would traditionally be, I don't know, like maybe a bit of an older demographic areas that maybe people go because it's quite a life after the city, you know, they've retire and they're like, you know what, let's get out of the city and go somewhere chill that still have a bunch of like, you know, what's the word, like, I was gonna say amenities, it's probably the wrong thing, but you know, it's not like a tiny little town. Like Kingston's a pretty big, you know, town/city and that isn't one of the major ones, but it's cool to see that. And I'm typically watching the Prince Edward County side because it's something I'm sort of super into, but then you guys are like, you know, 20-30 minutes away. And it seems to be growing. Like I'd love to hear more about that, because like the fact that you guys would even attempt this would not look out of place in Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Wisconsin these days. You know, shouts to New Glarus, by the way. I love that shit.
Oh, my New Glarus, yeah.
Right, killer. I got a friend in Vermont who's from Wisconsin. So in the before times, every time I saw him, he always gave me the what's the cow beer? I've never blank.
Spotted Cow.
Spotted Cow. Every time, he always gave it to me. I was like, "What the fuck is this? Why you keep giving me this beer?" Now I understand the vibes.
Yeah,
but
New Glarus, for everybody
yeah.
to know it. It's one of the
Classics.
top-ranked breweries in the world, and it's only sold in Wisconsin. They tried to expand beyond the borders and just couldn't do it. Wisconsinites love it so much they couldn't keep up with supply.
Look at that. That's a beautiful
Amazing.
thing. Yeah, I just love to what's happening. Why is this change happening in that whole region? Speak, you know, from Kingston throughout Prince Edward County and whatever that incorporates out there. What's going on out there? Is it the, like, my guess would be it's a exodus from the cities due to the pandemic to a degree, which I think was probably not the only thing though, because I think it started 3 to 5 years ago and it started to accumulate a little bit more lately. But you guys were ahead of the curve, you know, opening a place like this out there. And to me, it's just so dope. I'm a city kid. I've never really been out in the rural areas, or not that fucking Kingston's a rural area, but you know what I'm saying? Like, just straight city dude. And that to me is just so fascinating that now this is all the stuff that you could never get. Beer made me explore these regions I would never normally go to. And I love seeing that you can get the same quality stuff in these areas that you can in the city. So I'd love to just hear what you guys think is happening out there, as far as like why this growth is happening and this change of maybe, like, I don't know if it's demographics or it's just mentality or what's going on.
I think a couple things. I think that the way that people are, there's still the generation that exists that would have grown up, and their beer options would have been some variation of a light lager, right? What's your beer? It's a light lager. It's a lager. You know, maybe you're adventurous and it's an Alexander Keith's, which is labeled as an IPA, right? So they're like, and I think that generation is sort of going, and I think in the world of craft beer, like I feel like people generally consume, like they drink craft beer not to overconsume but to enjoy. So I think that's leading the market where people are now drinking what they want to drink as opposed to drinking what is going to be alcohol that's going to get them drunk. Um,
I like that.
so I think that's a part of it. I don't know, Ryan, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah. Yes. You want to hear them? Oh, okay.
Oh, I'd love to hear them. You'd love.
No. I don't. I was just curious.
Like if they existed.
Follow-up at the brewery.
If I could go ahead and continue.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like the rise of remote work and the rise of corporations that are like allowing people to work from wherever they like. I have a buddy that's a professional. Like he's like a low intermediate to like just becoming a senior. Like I'm 35, so he's right around the same age, and he's crushing it at work. But he lives in Kingston. He's not in Toronto. He's not downtown going to the financial district every day. He's just crushing work from Kingston, right. And competing on this like giant corporation that works all the way across Canada. And I think more of that's happening. I also think there's a growth of people's appreciations for, I think it's largely an idea of the countryside, like want to be close to nature, like the love for like terroir. So like the Prince Edward County thing is growing because the terroir there is fantastic. Ordovician carbonates and yeah, like beautiful grapes that grow there, especially like Chardonnay. Yeah, so I think that whole like getting closer to nature and getting further away from the grind is a big driver for it.
Interesting.
And like Kingston, we're a city still, but like we're a decent sized city, but we're like never more than 20 minutes from getting out of town. You can drive north and just get out of town in 20 minutes and be at a hike if you want to go in the countryside.
See, that is.
I think
Go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I could add, I think one thing in the world of beer as to what would drive the desire is that I've heard the saying or whatever that wine is made in the vineyard and beer is made in the brew house. So I think now there is such access to resources and quality ingredients that you don't have to be in Toronto or Montreal or a big city or on a farm to be making the best quality product, right? Like you could be anywhere and still pump out very good quality product if you have the skill and the knowledge and the drive to do it, right? So
that's a really good point, man. That's really what it is. But you know what? It's not even about the fact that you can make it there. There's fire. It's the fact that people in the region want it. The fact that you guys can exist and not exist, just exist, but thrive in that region. And there's not just you guys, but there's a bunch of other breweries that are doing, they're pushing the boundaries. And there seems to be, this is why I'm fascinated that like, there's this influx of like really dope shit that people it's almost like you guys are so under the radar. It's disgusting. Like it actually almost angers me how much people, well, almost because I can still get it. But otherwise you guys like, the stuff that's happening out there is going to be if it's almost like the city kids need to discover it enough to be able, and then they'll realize what they're missing out on. So it's like you have this like local hidden gem for now, not necessarily exactly. Obviously, people are I imagine you guys are shipping across Ontario and stuff.
We're not. That's
not
the
yet.
local hidden gem is hopefully what we're perceived as because we are terrible
so,
at like distribution outward and like we're basically keeping up with the sales in Kingston. And now as winter comes, every brewery slows down. So that's when we put more thought into distribution elsewhere. But we don't want to grow too fast. And like, we don't want to like get in the LCBO with the wrong beer. We want like people to perceive us how we want to be perceived, right? Like we don't, like
Yep.
we love our light lager, but honestly, I don't want our light lager to be the first beer you drink from us, which is why you guys don't have light lagers on your tables right now. Because
Yeah,
I want you to
lager will
experience
not.
what we can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, so you
Our
guys
view
thought
is
this
that
through.
so when we go into the LCBO, which is an inevitable step, it won't be our light lager because that doesn't represent our brand. I'm going to say, right? Because like when I think of breweries that I haven't been to, I just sort of associate that brewery with the beer that I know, right? Their can, the beer. So like if you just saw Daft Brewing light lager and you live 7 hours away from the brewery, then you're not going to know that we're doing all this cool and interesting stuff.
That's a really great. I was actually going to ask you that earlier. Is that the one that you would put into the LCBO? But I think that is a fantastic point. It might be a high seller, but it might not be the one. Maybe you could lead if you are. Are you trying to go LCBO route at some point?
So we're like we've had a weird roller coaster ride. Like we opened January 2020, and then within 2 months we were closed down for a pandemic, and then our summers are nuts. Like both this summer and last summer, you'd walk into our walk-in cooler, and there were times when we were dangerously close to having 0 kegs in there, and it's like, okay,
We were getting kegs from other breweries to like fill out. Like we ran out of IPAs, so we asked Stone City for some kegs, and
yeah. So I'm gonna say, and then so last November around this time, we were finally in a position where we're like, okay, things are slowing down a bit. Let's start pursuing active sales, and then another lockdown, so that kind of stopped that in its place, and then so now we've just transitioned one of our employees into a sales role. So, and the summer craziness is over. So we're in a position that now we are starting to think about these long-term things and actively pursuing avenues that weren't really available to us just based on I don't know how much beer we could pump out at the time. So we're taking those steps now.
Okay. I love that.
Nice.
I mean, look, it's not all. I've seen more and more breweries that never did it, like Bellwoods and stuff, and now they're just slamming shit in the LCBO. Before they just never would do it. So I imagine that the pandemic has definitely put that into perspective. That there is definitely some value, but mostly with discovery, I would imagine, because the whole point is to either get them coming into the brewery, because that's really where you make most of the margin, but also the experience of like everything Nate was describing with the colorful murals and the vibe in there. Hey, Doug. And the love a pop. Bring the pop up. Well, everyone loves poppers.
Koopa, come here.
Let's say g'day. What I'm saying is not anywhere near as important as this dog. Hey, shit is a
150-pound dog.
Hey, bud.
Oh, that's a cute dog. Oh my god.
Okay.
Is it boy, girl?
Good boy. He's a Newfie.
Oh wow, what a gorgeous dog. What's breed?
He's a Newfoundlander.
Oh, Newfoundland. I never heard of that.
Buddy.
A Newfoundlander, just that's what it's called.
Yep. Yeah, they're
the dog that wears the barrel around his neck.
Those are
Saint Bernard.
Okay.
Barrels.
Yep.
Okay.
Koopa, they're bred for water rescue. So in theory, his breed could be trained to jump out of helicopters or off of boats to save people.
To help people, right?
But I imagine Koopa would just help them to drown quicker.
Oh, that's a gorgeous dog.
What a cutie, man! Fucking dogs are the best. What were we talking about? So one other question on that, because obviously the LCBO sales leading to other opportunities. Obviously, there's brand awareness, but one thing I always want to ask you guys, and I imagine there's a pretty solid reason for it, but you've when I had the cool, it was in the can. Everything else I had was in bottles, including the New England IPAs. I had a West Coast IPA that was fantastic from you guys. That Nick told me about as well. What was the thinking around the decision to start with these kind of 650 ml bottles primarily? This is what I've seen from you guys for the most part, aside from obviously the pop top we had earlier. Where did that come from as far as the packaging?
I think a bunch of things. I think that just cost at the upfront would be one for sure. It's just cheaper for us to buy a bottling machine, especially when we're starting up and spending lots and lots of money on other things. There's only so much money to go around.
That's it.
But Also, we just kind of like this format. Like, I really like a bomber to split with somebody. Like, for me, anyways, it's sort of just the right amount, where I can have it and drink it. I'll pour a glass and have a little bit more, or it's perfect for sharing. Like, so I think, especially at the beginning, like, we really want it to be a place to go and converse and have a beer with a friend. And this is ideal for that because you can share it two ways, and both of you are getting a reasonable amount of beer
That's true.
together.
Yep.
Also, it's sort of like we were very much so inspired by that West Coast style brewery, and this is still commonplace in the West Coast. Like, a lot of places are doing bottles. We see, I know that there's the transition into cans, especially in Ontario, just because the LCBO sort of dictates that cans are all, and we need tall boys.
Yep.
But I'm gonna say, just out of both necessity and preference, that's sort of what led the initial drive to do bottles. I don't know if Ryan.
I think
you
a
would...
large part of it, a large part of it is, I think cans are great. Believe me, I love cans. Like, I get the appeal, and I know that it's growing more and more. People's preferences are growing in that direction. Whether that's like largely led by the LCBO or people's preference is like, I think Adam's probably right. Like, we're going the route that is led by the LCBO, but what's nice about these bottles is that they're a little unwieldy. Like, you're not gonna crack this and drink right out of the bottle. Most people don't. I have friends that do, and I still yell at them. But like, this is a big beer to be hauling around and drinking out of. What I want people to do is pour it into a glass. And so if you have a massive bottle, you're much more likely to pour it into a glass and then see the beer that you're about to taste, smell the beer you're about to taste. And so that's kind of, it's old school thinking. Yeah, it's old school thinking. Like, that's the way, like, that's why, like, people put foil on the top of their bottles, or they used to. It's why, like, wax dipping was a big thing for a lot of companies, because they wanted people to pour it into a glass. But that
I'd
style
never thought
is
of
changing.
That's a really good point. Yeah, like that is a thing that, like, I mean, unless unless you're a college kid, if you've got a bottle of this size, you're gonna be you're gonna be pouring it into a glass. You're absolutely right.
Or a red cup.
Yeah, or a red solo cup.
But we're not blind. We see it. We have like plans to bring in more cans. We actually, since you had some of our cool cans, you've seen the first part of that initiative. We actually had some setbacks with our canning company that I will not get into, but we're readjusting, and next year we'll start coming out with more cans again, kind of strategically which ones. Probably something that we'll submit to the LCBO, but that means, like, when you submit a beer to the LCBO, it's like 6 to 9 months in the future. So we'll submit it like this winter, and maybe it'll be out next fall or something like that.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Go
So,
Nate.
Is it stout time?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Down.
I'm ready. Nate, you want to
Let's
grab
do
it
it.
first this time? You let me go last time.
I'll do that.
You're a gentleman. So, another interesting choice as well. This one is a nice, I believe, 5.5% oatmeal stout. Is that right?
Not oatmeal, just straight up. It's a coffee milk stout, so it has a little bit of lactose in it. Yeah.
Hey, team lactose all day. Okay. Is this a regular? What's the deal with this particular one? Is this something that you guys do? Is it year round?
It's not year round. It's rotating, but this is the third time we've brought it back. It's one of our most requested beers.
Okay. So it just does it have? So it has actual coffee and lactose.
It has a shit ton of coffee.
I would say there's probably like a 1-to-1 ratio of caffeine in this beer as there would be in a cup of coffee. So if you're sensitive to caffeine, then good luck sleeping tonight.
Oh, I'm good, bro. Let's fucking get lit. Let's do it. What are the beans that you use? Speaking, because we were talking about coffee before. What beans are you using?
So we've changed it up a few different times. So this is the first time we've gone with Hale coffee. They're out of Toronto.
I love Hale. Yeah.
Fantastic. If you're a coffee guy, you must know Hale.
Just off Dundas. No, DuPont.
Yeah. I think they have a few like cafes now.
Oh,
I
they
think,
do.
like,
Okay.
they're growing. Yeah, they're a beloved coffee roastery in Toronto.
Great choice. I love it. I'm gonna
Yeah,
grab mine. Keep talking about it whilst I fetch my one.
yeah. So yeah, this beer in general is something we opened with. So we started
Oh,
with a
really? Okay.
local coffee roaster in Kingston, and we used them a couple times, and they were good. And so we basically cold brew the coffee into the beer, and so we make the stout. So there's lactose in it, so it's has a little bit of creaminess, a subtle sweetness to it from the lactose milk sugar. Um, and then we finish it by cold brewing just freshly ground coffee beans into the fermenter right before we transfer it to the bright tank. So it's basically like 24 to 48 hours sitting on coffee, just to pull out those flavors without much of the astringency, bitterness in the beans. And
Yep.
yeah, and so we decided to go with Hale this time because they're a fantastic company. They do direct trade, I think it's called. So they actually go to wherever they're getting coffee from and create the relationships themselves.
Right.
And so they know it's not like nobody's being taken advantage of. And so these ones, I believe, are Honduran beans, organic Honduran beans. And so
Love
they
it.
have quite a few different options. So we'll probably use them again and use a different coffee strain. Yeah, there's a lot going on. These ones are fantastic.
Oh,
It's
Man,
basically
that
like
smells
drinking
yeah.
a coffee. with an apple sandwich.
I love this beer. This so if we've done 60 different beers, this one is top 5 for me.
Top 5.
Like
eh?
I'm not a big black coffee guy, just because I find it's a little too bitter, a little too harsh, maybe sometimes too acidic. But this one, I think, with a little bit of lactose, sort of balancing it out, and
Yep.
it's got like a nice creaminess, and like this one, I think, is a good demonstration of a lot of our beers in general, where if we call it a coffee beer or something like that, we're not, that's exactly what it is. There's no mystery. As soon as you smell this thing, that there's a bunch of coffee in it.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Big
if
time.
you see a beer on the shelf and it's called a blueberry this or a whatever that, and you can't even detect that flavor, I'm gonna say that will not happen at Daft.
I love that. No, nothing subtle.
I appreciate that. Like if you're gonna be putting out a coffee stout, I want it I want it to smell like coffee. I want it to taste like coffee. Like particularly for for coffee geeks like C and I are like. And I mean like really for like for anyone who's a coffee nerd, and I mean it's I mean coffee's a whole culture in like in Canada that if you pick up a coffee beer, you're doing so deliberately. So you're looking for that aroma and you're looking for that taste. So that's a good thing to have there. And the aroma on this is just intoxicating. It's like you were saying, the coffee comes off so nice, and even just on the aroma, like you can tell that there's a creaminess to it. Like it's not like you say, you've got the coffee without the astringent the like aspect to it, and it's not coming off too vegetal or anything like that. It's it is enticing. I haven't even taken a sip yet.
So I had to.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that is gorgeous. This label is so fire too, with the purple.
Yeah, the Hale logo. We love the Hale logo on there. It's sweet.
Hale looks dope. Yeah, Nate, you nailed that there. This is like, and the best part about this is 5.5%. I would argue I would typically have beers like, I mean, I know Adam, you're saying it's like kind of 1-to-1, but like, you'd be drinking 9-10% beers that would have this much coffee in it. And look, I'm not soft. I'm here for it. Let's fucking go. But this is great because I want that. I think it's so dope to have that. Oh, Nate, be just changing his battery.
Yep, I'm still here.
Yeah, you're good. The coffee. Oh my god! And you said it was a single origin Honduran beans, as I say in here, which is crazy. A little touch of lactose to give it that milk stout in there. Wow, man, love that. This is just like this is intense in the best.
Yeah, I was hoping.
Way.
not to make it a big heavy stout. I didn't want it to be 9% because I want it to be approachable. I want and it's not like super heavy. It's got a lighter body to it, but I'd say medium body-ish, and but the lactose really bring that creaminess. I feel like is essential.
Yes.
Like to have that, it pulls it more into being like I try to think of it as like a mocha, something like that. It has like a little of the creaminess of a mocha, like a little of the chocolatiness from that roasted grain, and then a ton of the coffee.
Dude,
Yep.
coffee. What's
Yep,
the
we're all about that?
if I missed it? What's the coffee is for closers about? That's awesome.
That's
It's maybe one of our
Glengarry,
oldest
Glenpost.
references. Glengarry Glen Ross.
What's
It's
that?
Alec Baldwin's
Glen Ross,
first
yeah.
movie that the one that made him famous. It's like a scene with a bunch of sales guys, and he's basically just yelling at them, and he because they all suck or whatever, they're not making their sales they need to, and Alec Baldwin's just screaming at them to do
Yelling.
better, and says they can't have coffee until they close some sales. It's good. It's a good scene.
So there's a QR code on our bottle. If you scan that, it'll take you to a video link that inspired the name of the beer. So that's on all of our bottles.
Oh, that's
the
clever.
reference
I
is
love
on every
that.
bottle.
Testing
so
that right now.
Pretty much all of our beers are inspired by some sort of pop culture reference or something.
I love
Just 'cause
that.
we're all movie geeks.
Oh, that's sick. It even just goes to the website and stuff.
Yeah,
that's-
and then
that's
also-
smart.
Come on. There you go. That's awesome, man. See, honestly,
Yeah.
bro, shit like this is what I'm talking about. This is attention to detail. This is true branding. This gets me amped. I love this. This is fantastic. I'm gonna watch this
It
afterwards.
helps to have a tech guy on staff. as a
Yeah,
partner.
you were saying that before.
That would.
I love this, man. So then, do you guys? It sounds like everything we've had tonight. I know this is. Would you say what we've had tonight is a relatively accurate reflection of kind of the eclecticness of what Daft does as a brewery?
I think it's showing you it's leaning towards our unique side. We also have we don't have any IPAs here, and we were really debating whether we should send you an IPA. But I assume you guys drink a ton of IPAs and probably
Yes.
talk about a ton of IPAs. And don't get me wrong, I love IPA, but maybe your listeners don't want to hear about IPA from us. So because we have other options. So we always have IPAs. And
Right.
we always have light beers, and so this selection is kind of an idea of what the uniqueness of us, so what we want that aspect of us to show.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a couple
and
thoughts.
no, go ahead, Adam.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I think when Ryan and I were choosing, we were probably staring at 10 different beers that we could have sent to you guys to try, and I think that like in what Ryan was talking about, there's aspects of a lot of breweries make a very good light lager or a very good IPA, so we could also send you a very good light lager or I think a very good IPA. So we tried to find things that would be unique to us, right? So sort of get a sense as to what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to say that we make a light lager because we like to drink it and to sort of fill that necessary gap. But we do those things so that we can do these things, I would say.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a great explanation. And funnily enough, when my friend visited, sorry, Nate.
No, that's okay.
Although I said when he was like, "Yo, I'm going to Daft," I'm like, "Oh man, can you get me some stuff?" And he's like, "Yeah, cool. What do you need?" And I went to the website and I was like, "All right, give me the West Coast." There was 2 hazy IPAs and the Pilsner, I think is what I got. That's what I went for because I didn't know that, when Ryan, you were saying before about you guys being a sour brew, I didn't know that. I didn't know what you guys were about. So I was like, okay, well, I like all of these sort of styles. Let's try. Let's see what's going on. Nate had already told me the West Coast was fire. I'm always interested in crispy boys. And I was impressed with those. But then when you guys sent these ones, Nate and I were like, this is interesting. This is not what I expected at all. And I think that was now you've explained that, Adam, the way you guys approached it, I think that was like super dope. Like, it's a cool way to showcase the brand that, like, you know, not everyone would send a half cider, half beer, a carrot and spruce tip and ginger beer, and then an insane low ABV coffee stout. Like, that's a very unique combination of beers to showcase a brewery. And I think that speaks to who you guys are and who the brand is, I guess, right? Like, it feels like it's very in line with everything else that you guys are doing, which is dope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was. I think it was a good choice. It showed like it was evidently a very deliberate choice, as you guys described. You know, it showcases kind of your more creative side, and and exactly like you said, you know, like we drink plenty of IPAs and plenty of lagers like when we shoot these. And what I was thinking of is when I came by your guys' place back in mid-September. You know, I had a really nice West Coast IPA on the patio there. It was fucking dope. Like really good. I was really impressed with it. And I grabbed some bottles to take home of the more quirky stuff as well. So, you know, got to have a bit of a taste of both. And it's convenient that the stuff that Cee's friend there got him was was kind of along that line as well. The more along the more traditional side, but and now we're kind of showcasing the quirky stuff that is really in line with your guys' whole ethos. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. We love what we're doing. Like, I'm just so, like, I'd say shocked a little bit at the reception. I really thought that we were going to start out like being insistent we're not going to have flagships, and then like we're going to very quickly be forced into having flagships. But I've just been even still, I'm surprised when people come in and their first question is, "What's new? What do you have?
Yeah.
What's new?"
Do you guys think that's
It's interesting because I think that if you guys had come on the scene 3 years earlier, you probably would have been more tied to leaning in that direction. I think coming into the scene when you did, I think allows you a bit more of that flexibility. It's funny how timing can play that kind of role in in kind of directing which direction you take.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, it's I think so before we opened, like, I just consumed myself and everything beer related, and one of them I think it was called Micro Brewer, but there was a podcast I listened to, and a consistent trend that I gathered was that there was lots of breweries that sort of wanted to do what we're doing, but then I could see how they would go into that with that desire, and just because of like logistics or some of the challenges that we've had to face from doing what we're doing, how it would be tempting to immediately stop doing it, right? Like we've, so just this coffee beer, right? When we did it the first time, especially when we first opened, I don't know how many times we would have people come back being like, "Oh, I was here and I had a coffee beer," and we'd have to be like, "Oh, well, sorry that thing that you love that you came back for, we don't have, but here's what we're doing," right? So I think we've been open long enough now that people sort of get it.
Yeah, you have to educate your customers.
Yeah.
Are there any? Because I feel like there's always two sides to the not repeating beers thing. So, if you're not repeating it, the beauty of it is you get to you satisfy those customers. You go, "What's new? What's going on?" Sometimes it's the ticker culture from Untapped, which can have a negative connotation. Personally, I hear about it a lot. I love Untapped because it just lets me keep track of what I'm drinking. But then the downside of that would be that you're probably not repeating recipes enough that you maybe nail them as far as making sure they're perfect. On the flip side, if you're doing the same beers over and over, it's kind of boring for you because it becomes like a factory job or something. It's maybe boring for the consumer because they want to see something different. But the upside is that you've really nailed down those recipes. So I guess have you guys? You've probably obviously leaned towards the one-time thing. But you've also then, I guess, like, how did you choose the beers that you would do over multiple times? And then sort of like, obviously you'd be drilling down those recipes and dialing them in a little bit more so they're kind of like exactly where you want them to be. Like, how do you make that decision then, being that you've chosen that like one-off route?
Yeah, it's a good question and good comments. Like, you're absolutely right. Like, there are some breweries that just want to make the perfect pilsner, right? And so, like, they start out like so. Fine Balance is a great example of this. I know the brewer Eric pretty well, and he wants to do exactly that. He wants to perfect recipes, and like it's great. He's honing in each time I have his beer. They're better and better and better. And like, not to say they were bad to start with, they're really good. And so like, he's fine tuning to the point, especially on the system, because you brew in a new system, you have to tweak things every time. And so it's an interesting point. With us making new beers all the time, there's aspects that like, so we make a lot of sour beers. So like the fine tuning does still happen. And so it's like we change aspects of it. And so you kind of learn how to create a better beer as you go. So our sour beers have gotten better. And our same thing with our IPAs, they've gotten better. And it's because what we're changing are aspects that we can control, like the hops in IPA. So like our malt bill will like fluctuate a bit, but how we treat it in like on the system, like in the mash, like mash temperatures and boil timing, like things like that are pretty consistent. That's the stuff that we have fine tuned a bit. So there is still an aspect of the fine tuning. But then, yeah, you're right on like the carrot beer. Like I'm not fine tuning that beer. So like I don't know. Like sometimes you just gotta have a one-off beer that's just like a shot in the dark. And some we've had misses. Like we've had some beers that have just been like fine, maybe not even fine. Like and like they like some people like them and sometimes a lot of people hate them, and that's totally
there's
fine.
only been one beer, Ryan, that we've put out that I didn't think it was bad, but I didn't. I was not selling it when I was talking to people. Which do you think it was? The peach pepper wheat.
Yeah, that was a miss, I think. Peach pepper wheat.
Yeah,
Peach pepper wheat.
It was like a little. The residual sugar was a little too high. Like there's like peach puree and like hot peppers. So like we put like these like spicy peppers in the boil, and so it was a little much, like too much sweetness, and like the balance wasn't there. We missed the balance, and that's where fine tuning would help. But it's not worth it with that beer. Like we're just not going back to it again.
Right.
But we've done other beers with like peppers. So like you learn how to use ingredients more and more. So it's like you are learning as you go. So like we do a lot of different pepper beers. Like we have like a sour series that's like our umami series, we call it, where we tie in like a depth of character, right? Like depth of flavor, like which is this umami into sour beers. And they're not savory beers. They're like fruity and delicious, but they also just have this like complexity that you can't quite understand why.
Yeah, well,
and so yeah, go ahead.
So I was gonna say there's a couple things where I think there's give and take in either direction, right? Like it could be you could find positive or negative. So one aspect, like imagine if let's say that we opened 10 years ago and we came out with a East Coast style IPA, and we just that was it. We had it dialed down, and that was our recipe. I think that we would be limiting ourselves just because like there's always new and better hops or varieties or just ingredients and knowledge is changing, so that like now an IPA that you could get would be better than an IPA that you could have gotten 15 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So I think doing what we're doing allows us to stay on top of what is the best available to us at the time, and we're not almost like pigeonholing ourselves into something that is lesser than. But at the same time, I could see it both ways. Where if you spend years and years and years dialing down a perfect recipe, then it's just going to continue to be awesome. So I think we just sort of went with one way.
I also, yeah, and like further to that point, I think fine tuning can come in different forms, right? Like even if you're not making the same beer, like kind of month after month sort of thing. Like you mentioned that peach pepper wheat. If like if there's a lesson that you took away from that that you're applying to, like that you're applying to different recipes, that's like that's still a different kind of fine tuning, even.
That honestly
Yeah.
is the best point out of all of this. I didn't intend for that, but that is amazing. That because I almost feel like there's like two schools of thought. And look, if I was to start a brewery, I would do it your way. I would be making different shit all the time because that's what I want to drink. And then I love the idea. I love this concept that you can take the learnings. Like if you're making all these different hazy IPAs, the first hazy IPA, you'd be like, oh, that didn't work so well. But what if we change this? You do it the next one. Like, that's the one. And so even though they're all different beers, technically, the learning from 4 brews ago applies still. So really, you're kind of doing the same thing, just in a different way, which is that shouldn't be undervalued though. Like that should not be discounted as a fine tuning, because really it is. It's just a different type of fine tuning.
Yeah. And then, so another thing that we do like is we have some series of beers that, even though they're not flagships or mainstays, we might brew them again. So like there are some recipes that we've done multiple times that just get better and better as we go, even though they're not always available. But there's like, so even that, the Never Nude that we were talking about, like we've had a Never Nude almost all, like basically available on tap always, unless we have a gap since we've opened. But there's aspects of that change. So the fruit that's in it changes constantly. So as we're doing it, even though the fruit changes, I'm going to say, Ryan, like from Never Nude Edition 1 to the last edition, it's gotten just better and better because you're learning how to ferment it, control it, brew it, just everything. And see, like the cool you had, that would have been one of 4 different cools that we've had. So I'm going to say, outside of tweaking the whatever, I don't even know if you've tweaked that recipe at all, Ryan, but we'll play with the elements of it. So like that's a dry hop Pilsner. So each time we've done it, it's been with a different dry hop. So that like, I don't know which, I don't know if you'd remember which one you had.
Was it Belma? Does that sound familiar? No?
No, I don't think we did a...
I'm going to check my old
I know that earlier in the year, I think this was back in the spring when you guys did a mobile drop. I had the Nelson Sylvain version.
Oh, Bar Rouge.
Oh yeah, Bar Rouge.
Okay.
Honestly, this shit was killer. And it didn't taste to me like, oh, they just threw shit at the wall and did a Pilsner. I was like, oh, these guys do Pilsners. Like, that's how I felt about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing I had from you guys felt like you were just, that was your first attempt. And you were just, like, trying to do some crazy shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really, everything tastes pretty well. I mean, obviously, it was only like September as well. So about the same time Nate went. So, like, yeah, definitely dialed in. So that's fascinating. That's really interesting to me. The other thing I wanted to mention before I forgot, the only thing I would have liked to see from this, and I know it's probably difficult on a bottle, was date codes, because I got my friend to get the haze and the West Coast, but I didn't know when it was bottled. And I feel like that is I imagine that's something that you guys are, it's probably not as simple on a bottling machine or something like that.
It's not. You have to do it all by hand. And so like if we were to have bottles in the LCBO, then we would have to do it. And so like it's on the list of things. It's a good point. Yeah, especially for IPAs where it matters.
That was the only thing. Just for reference. So, it's not like anything was bad or anything. It was more like everything was actually really solid. Hence wanting to speak to you guys even more after trying it. But it was more just like, oh, I'd like to know, because in my head, if I'm like, oh, this is 4 weeks old or this is 2 weeks old, there's an approach to the beer where you kind of have a vague idea of how it's supposed to taste. After X amount of time.
You're exactly right. And I'm so happy you talk about this on your podcast, because, man, what I've realized is the general everyday customers need to learn more and more how to treat an IPA. Like, always keep it refrigerated. And, like, timing is everything. For
buy it and drink
me,
it. You don't store that.
Yeah, an IPA is like, when we brew it, it's like on day 1, it's delicious, and there's only improvement for the first week, So for me, an IPA a week after it's out of the tank in the bottle or a keg or whatever is
Money's
prime
on.
time. That's
Okay.
exactly the time you want to drink it.
That's good
And
to
then
know.
after a week of being packaged is a slow decline. And after, if it's in the fridge, so if it's in the fridge, you got a bit more time. So like 4, 5, maybe even 6 months. If you keep it nice and cold, never treat it bad, but that's pushing it. Like 3 months,
Really?
3 months is
That's
ideal.
a lot.
I thought you were going to say weeks. When you said 4, 5, 6, I was going to say weeks.
Yeah, weeks are ideal, but like I've had IPAs, like if you keep it in your fridge, if you handle it right, like 3
Okay.
months is like I think okay. But like
If it's been kept
happens-
refrigerated the whole time from start to finish.
Gotcha.
yeah, and we never like we always store ours cold, like never on the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if it's spent like a week or two sitting out of the fridge before you've gotten it in there, that'll be an exponential drop off at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you know
chemical
what's-
reactions like
Yeah.
increase
actually-
significantly at higher temperatures.
That's a great point. And being that you're a scientist, Ryan, I got a question for you. So we've got this series that we do on our YouTube channel. It doesn't really have a name. But basically, I have a bookshelf just to my left here, and I've done it 3 times. I've put a beer on the shelf for a week, and then the exact same beer in a fridge for the exact same time. Put the beer that was on the shelf in the fridge for 24 hours, and I would drink them both side by side and try and guess which one was sitting in the warmth or in the fridge. I did it with a New England IPA, a West Coast IPA, and a Czech Pilsner, all of them fresh. New England IPA, the fridge was phenomenally better. The other two, leaving them out, was leagues better than putting them in the fridge. I could not believe my eyes. The Pilsner, I was like, okay, could have gone either way. But the West Coast, it was like, to be honest, I drained the can that was left in the fridge and just drank the one that was out.
You know what's funny?
Really?
I think I totally I could see why, because what
Please
I get
tell me.
when the hops are decaying. So like we pay a shit ton of money for high end hops. Like it's one of our biggest expenses when we're brewing beer,
It would
especially
be.
IPAs.
It would
Just
be.
a ton of like Citra, Mosaic, Sabro, whatever. All these like high end, very very expensive hops. We pay a lot of money to get them in the beer, and West Coast IPAs aren't like traditionally. You don't use those. You use like Simcoe and Cascade, Centennial. Like these are like hops. Like you could. I know there are like exceptions to that nowadays, but like that's what traditionally it was in a West Coast IPA. And like these things that have more herbal notes and citrus, like citrus and herbal. And what I get when like these high end, like super juicy, like hops, like Citra break down, they're releasing more of like, for me, spicier flavors. So like it's when they break down, they're producing more of the flavor of a West Coast hop. So I could see why like aging a West Coast IPA out of the fridge wouldn't change it significantly, or maybe even enhance it in that direction, like resinous dank style, because those resinous dank flavors are what like a lot of these high end like the New England style hops are breaking down into for me. That's my perception, and like this, there's no fact based behind that. It's just how I perceive it.
I haven't actually asked anybody yet, and I was just because we were talking about it. I'm like, I want to run that by you, but that makes complete sense. It was like the one that was in the fridge had less head retention, less flavor. It was more dull in the nose. Like every element of that beer was less than the one that was left out. And I'm pretty paranoid, I guess is the word. Like obviously all the beers I got from you, my friend dropped them off, put them bad boys straight in the fridge. I don't know if he kept them in the fridge. I can't remember. Maybe there was a gap there, but I didn't notice anything with yours. It was just because I did a specific test. I happened to get doubles of a few beers, and I bought some as well to make sure, to really do the experiment properly. And it was just an interesting one, but I think that is a pretty solid answer for West Coast, at least. Anyway, it was just like an interesting thing because, like you guys said, like, there's just an education component for consumers, particularly maybe, and tell me if I'm wrong, maybe the newer folks, because I feel like because you guys are so cool, because you're in Kingston area, and maybe there's a bunch of people, like I find that what I've learned, the town people who are in town as opposed to cities are like super proud. This is my local brewery. Yeah, Daft is 3 minutes around the corner. I go there all the time. I go there every Friday and I pick up 6 of this and 6 of this. This is my joint. So like they might not be craft beer drinkers, but they're just proud that you're this dope local brewery that maybe all the cool kids from Toronto are coming to check out. And I guess what comes along with that is those conversations are in the brewery. They go, what is that? You know, they're learning along the way. So you guys are really performing a service to craft beer, I imagine. Like, what would be your demo? Like, what's the what's the percentage maybe of like noobs to nerds in the establishment who come through?
Yeah, good question. I think we have a big mix. I think you're right that there are a good chunk of people that love us because we're in the neighborhood and we're their bar, we're their like spot, and we're doing something unique in Kingston that probably is just like extra icing on the cake for them.
Totally.
We've got. I'll interrupt you, Ryan, to say that we've got 3 people so far. The count is at 3 that have our flamingo logo tattooed onto their body forever.
That's amazing.
So we've got a couple loyal followers.
Like you mean literally like they have the tattoo?
Us? I saw that before. On
Wow.
Instagram. I'll pull it up.
That's next level.
So I was I've seen it before, and I just like before we opened, I was like, okay, that's when we've made it. So that's Bruce, which I love that iteration of our tattoo.
That's beautiful.
Yep, wow.
Actually, is it not? And you guys have been open less than 2 years, and you got man's tattooing your shit on there, bro. That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy though. Like actually crazy. I mean, even if you just like I don't know, talk about branding, just looking at the sort of Instagram, look how bright and colorful this is, and like how much it's attractive.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah, man. I'm just like we're such big fans. Like Nate and I are just such huge fans of your brand and just what it looks like. And
somebody takes great photos, eh?
Yeah, man, that Ryan guy, woo, he is attractive. My goodness.
Like I didn't want to be the one to say it, but I'm glad somebody did.
Yeah. Facts are facts, bro. What am I gonna say?
Ryan
The way he captures the legs in those never nude photos, oh man.
Ooh, yeah. All those male backsides. Woo.
Yeah, I got extra photos.
Ryan is expert at photographing nearly naked or
someone's going to be the pro. No, it's just really cool, man. I just really respect what you guys have done. The other thing I want to ask before I forget was, Adam, you touched on before, you said that a lot of breweries have said they wanted to do what you guys are doing, which is, you know, the styles that you're not just leaning into the haze because haze is selling, or like whatever it might be, smoothie sours or crispies or whatever. You guys are really traveling your own sort of path here. What allowed, and you said a lot of them said they couldn't do it. So what made Daft be able to do what you guys do and successfully that maybe other breweries have not been able to? Is it just having the guts to do it in the first place and convince people, or what's the vibe, do you think?
That's a hard question to answer. So I think that there's whether or not a lot of breweries would go into it with the incredible plan to go without a flagship. I think that there's at least the romanticized idea that I want to go in and I just want to brew what I want to brew, and I want to be creative and I want to do this. I think what worked for us was a bunch of things. Like we sort of all went into this with the commitment ahead of time that this is what we wanted to do, and then Ryan, this just is aligned with his style of like, we don't have to ask Ryan to brew what he brews. He just brews what he brews because that's what he wants to brew. So I think that relationship between us sort of lines up perfectly. Also, there's it is just logistically challenging to do what we do, because every time we brew a new beer, we have to do a new label and coordinate the shipment of that label and get it in on time, so it's more
new
expensive.
Photo shoot.
Yeah, like, so it's just it's not just like if we were just brewing 5 beers over and over and over again, the content we would have to create and the effort required would just be all dealt with. We would just buy 100,000 labels, or like it would just be a different story. And I don't know if a part of it also would line up with just if COVID maybe helped us to continue to do what we do, because COVID has sort of like, I'm going to say, hindered our plans or delayed them to do things like get permanent taps and other licensees that would demand that we had the same beer available over and over again. So that could factor in as well.
Hmm.
So it's probably like a series of different things, and I think that we will, like eventually, we will have more than just one or two flagships. I think eventually we'll have a small handful, and then we'll have like rotating one-offs and repeat things.
Sure.
But we really wanted to figure out what we wanted to do first, and also figured out what our customers wanted from us first before we
Yeah.
just committed ourselves blindly to, okay, these are our 4 beers, and this is what we're going with.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Ryan, I sort of interrupted you when you were answering the other question. I can't remember what that was, what you were going on about.
I don't remember.
It's the coffee stuff.
Yeah.
No, this is dope. That makes a lot of sense, actually, man. Yeah, all of those different. I mean, obviously, there's not just one factor that allows you guys to do this, but it's just cool that to me, I guess that the impressive thing to me is that it feels like you've taken a larger risk by doing it in a place like Kingston that is essentially a growing craft beer scene. Obviously, there's been a few OGs out there that have done it for quite some time. I remember when the Spearhead Hawaiian Pale Ale came out. That was Beer 365 for me, and that thing I was telling you about earlier. That was a big
like 10
deal.
years ago.
Yes, it was. It was. That was.
And that was long before they were in Kingston too.
There you go. I think it was contracted, and I was like, "Where's the
Yeah.
pineapple? Why doesn't it fucking taste like pineapple?" And you know, and going from there, and there's been obviously Stone City with shouts to Justin, who's now a matron. You know, I used to, every time when I'm driving from Montreal to Toronto, we went there every month. I would always drop off all the cans and stuff at the beer store because they don't do that shit here really, and then go up to Princess Street, go to Stone City, pick up a bunch of stuff, and head on out. Like that was my ritual. And it was really cool to see the scene sort of grow. I know McKinnon Brothers are nearby, and you guys have Fine Balance and stuff. And I'm sure there's a bunch of others I'm probably neglecting. It just seemed like there's a real cool scene happening out there that it almost feels like it's just a matter of time before like the wider Ontario and Canada really discovers it. And it's like, yeah, like, do you guys consider yourselves maybe under the radar still, or am I sort of boosting on that? Because I just like look when I had your stuff, I was like, why haven't I seen this everywhere? Why isn't everybody I know talking about this? And I just, you know what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, I think you're right, and we're pretty self-aware. We know that we're known in Kingston. Like everybody in Kingston knows about Daft. The vast majority.
Of course.
Right.
And beyond that, maybe the region, the surrounding areas, maybe like a third of people know about us or less. In Toronto and Ottawa and Montreal, I'd say less than probably like 1% of people know about it. So yeah, we're very much under the radar on the broad scale, and that's we haven't pushed to get there yet, and so we're like COVID's been. I think a lot of it falls back on like what Adam was saying earlier is the timing of things.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't want our push elsewhere to like be forced or whatever. Like we want it to be natural. We want people to fall in love with the products and the branding. We don't want to target ad people and like just plaster our faces everywhere. We want people to like as naturally as possible come across us because they are interested in what we're doing. And so that natural growth is hard, and we've tried to create some pathways for it, and we're going to expand on that a bit more over the next year, it looks like. And we know we have some limitations right now. Packaging perhaps is a big one. And so like moving forward with things like that are going to help with distribution channels, and then beyond that it'll be like how are we going to strategically grow in certain markets without like forcing it.
Gotcha.
So it's
Yeah. I think that we haven't really done. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say, I don't think we've really, to further Ryan's point, we haven't really done anything to help those people in other cities be aware of our existence. Like we really don't deliver any, like we're pretty much right now a local brewery. I would say just by our activity and by design. So, you know, we will get there when people will hopefully see us, because we will then have a presence in that area. But like we don't really submit beers to like awards or whatever, just because part of that is because a lot of our beers don't really fit into style categories very nicely. So we're not going to win best stout with our coffee is for closers, or best carrot beer with our cookie room. Right?
We're gonna win best carrot beer. Come on.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
No, I feel that,
Well,
bro.
I
Go
can
ahead.
kind of speak to speak to what it's like, like to having an interest in your beer, like in your beers as a consumer from someone out of town. And I mean, I'm not even that far away from you guys, be like only being about a 2-hour drive or so. But like, I think that like, or for me, like I was immediately interested in you guys because of your like your very kind of out there vibe with your like with your branding, both of the brewery itself and the, like, you know, and the interesting social media and like, and you know, the bright colorful beers and all that. So I was interested in that for a little while, and I was kind of like waiting for an opportunity like to have a taste of it. And then there was one time, I think back in the spring, or maybe it was in the summer or something like that, where you did a mobile drop to Ottawa with like on one of Fine Balance's runs or something like that. And I like, and as soon as you had that, I'm okay, like, yes, this is my opportunity. I'm finally getting to have a taste.
Yeah.
So I think there might be more of an interest outside, like outside of town, than you might realize. Like I know that Fine Balance like has leveraged a lot of kind of like like the mobile drop, so like sort of thing. I'd be willing to bet that there are more people outside of Kingston who would be curious to try curious to try your stuff than you might think.
100%.
Yeah, no, I believe it. We just haven't pursued those avenues yet.
Yeah.
Just from like a part of it would just come to available product, right? So one of the
Yeah,
reasons
of
we
course.
weren't actively trying to sell kegs to licensees is because we'd be approaching licensees being like, "Hey, we exist. You want to buy some beer? By the way, I've got nothing to sell you."
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a good pitch, is it?
Nah.
Yeah, so we're just now in the process of, just because we recognize there is that demand, in partnering with a distribution company that will allow us to ship province wide if you buy a full case. So that's in the works now that the summer has cooled and we've got like time to focus on some of this stuff. So yeah, you'll see that happening hopefully within the next month. That'll be available.
That's
Awesome.
great. Yeah, I think that'll definitely help. And like, you know, being that, like, say, just to compare, like in Quebec, we still don't have that. So breweries here can't ship. The dépanneurs, like the beer stores, can
wow.
ship, but the breweries can't. So like, you know, I'm like in the city here, and you know, most of the beers we've had that. You know, you guys just got the indie beer stores over the pandemic. We've had it forever here.
Yeah.
So that is quite fortunate. But still, there's a whole bunch of breweries that I would like to purchase from that don't distribute at all, and they have to go to the brewery. And cool, some are in Montreal, but some are in Quebec City, and some are in fucking Halifax. And I don't have a whip. I'm in the city. I don't have a car, so I'm like, you know, I got commune auto now, which is dope. But like, it's still difficult to get hold of it. So one thing I'm always been jealous, say, of Nate. He's always been able to access stuff, whether it's from ordering online or being able to go to somewhere like the Dominion City, Friends of Dominion store, or Lupulus and things like that, just to be able to access stuff from all across the province. So like, yeah, I feel like it's just like this untapped world just waiting for you guys. And once the time is right, as far as production and packaging, or whenever you guys feel like it's time, I feel like you'll clean up. It just really will, and it's almost like you got to be prepared for what could come afterwards, because as people try the stuff and see it, because a lot of beer success is branding, and you've got that fucking down. So like, you know,
Really
obviously,
do.
yeah, I mean, that stuff is already
Thankfully,
done. And the beer is like A1 as well. Like this is insane. This is one of the best low ABV coffee stouts I've had in quite some time. Like this is phenomenal. So I mean, like I can only imagine that when people get to try all this stuff and then see it all, and there's gonna be a lot of interest. So it's probably better for y'all that you guys are actually planning out the full steps and making sure that all the ducks are in a row before you go sort of full force into that. But it feels like a very promising and exciting future there, which is very cool.
Well, thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate that. I like to think that we have yet to attempt to spread our wings fully, both by our own restrictions and with COVID and whatnot. So I'm curious to see as to where we'll go as a company.
Yeah, man. I love it.
Well, I think you guys are on the right path. You've got you've got the right product, and you've got you've got a really good handle on on some good unique branding and the way to market that product and that branding. It's a good thing to see.
100%. I love
Yeah.
it.
I'd love to ask you guys a quick question while I've got you. So,
Right. That's good.
yeah. So you guys so we're episode number 81. I see you guys have had a bunch of like themed guests where you talk about a specific subject as opposed to a specific brewery.
Yes.
So I very recently did one about breweries being canceled
Yes.
for different things, and I just saw that. I haven't listened to it yet, but how was that episode? I'd love to, just because I don't know, that's something that we recognize at a brewery that's going on, and as soon as we see something, it's like, oh shit. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. So my partner Tiffany and I, so basically we started off just with like a series of uninterconnected, just a real quick context for you to understand where that is. We did a whole bunch of we did up to episode 159, and the final episode was with Nate. And then we decided to take some time off, and we wanted to change up. We were getting bored of just doing these like unconnected random interviews. So then we decided at the start of 2020, which was a great time to do anything, to start a new series where we would do these themed seasons based on other podcasts. See the way they do it. They have a season of a podcast. And we did this one called Against the Grain. We did a bunch of stuff in Quebec. And then we did 4 of the 6 episodes, and the pandemic happened and we had to stop that. So we moved into the Adjunct series. And we have a non-profit to help buy POC to try and diversify the craft beer industry called Link Up. So we did a little series on that, but the Adjunct series are now the sort of one in between everything else. So my partner Tiffany, who is our producer, like I said, her and I did the one on the cancelled breweries, and it was kind of obviously one of the biggest cancelled breweries of all time is Founders in Grand Rapids, Michigan, who we've interviewed. We've been there. We met with the owner, the head brewer, and they were lovely to us. But unfortunately, they I don't know if you guys heard the story. They basically had some super racist shit happen. They didn't apologize. They did a settlement out of court, so they never had to take ownership for it. It was really bad, really poorly handled. So we were kind of we were talking about those cancelled breweries, but the specific one in particular for that episode was, did you guys see the thing about the Mikkeller festival in Denmark? Yeah. So it was the thing that pissed us off about that was about cancel culture with breweries, is there was, say, a brewery like Dominion City in Ottawa, who are some of the loveliest human beings in the industry I've ever met, who have done more for the community than most breweries combined. They committed to going to the Mikkeller Festival last year. They didn't follow, this is before the Me Too kind of, the Brave Noise thing with Brienne Rat Magnet earlier this year. So they committed to it, and then there was a bit of a pile-on Dominion City and Collective Arts, of the 2 breweries from Ontario that were going to that festival, because they didn't pull out. And I was like, the episode was essentially about how ridiculous we felt it was that all of Dominion City's past work was essentially cast aside, and there was people that were like, oh good, well I'm never buying from them again, and they were the last brewery I would ever think that people would say that about. And it really pissed me off about like the woke culture, or whatever, your cancel culture, whatever you want to call it, that they like, what could they have done to please everybody? It almost is just getting to the point where it doesn't matter what you do, it's never enough. And particularly, like, if Dominion City were if I saw people shit on them for like community-based things, that I was like, okay, well, it's all over. No one has a chance because they're the fucking Angels, and they get shat on for accepting a festival a year ago, and they didn't really think about it. Because why would they think about it? So that was really what inspired that episode. We talked about that at length. So it was more just
interesting.
Because we were
They
frustrated.
ended up not going, right? Like Dominion City ended up pulling out of that.
So did Collective Arts. So did almost everybody.
Yeah.
And that was the pressure. And look, whether that was right or wrong, that wasn't what we were trying to discuss. It was the fact that people weren't even listening to the nuance in the conversation. It's straight to, fucking, they cancelled, they're gone. I'm like, bro, like, we can't do that.
Hard.
We have a small scene. Like, we are entrepreneurs. We have staff. We have businesses. You guys are doing it at another level. We do not own a brick and mortar place that is worth 7 figures type shit. You know, we don't have the stress that you guys do. So I very, very, very much respect what you guys do and what you have to deal with. And I just don't think it's fair to treat breweries like this in any shape or form. I think there needs to be a conversation, and nuance has to be brought back, and that's what's been taken away from all this type of stuff. And that's really what that episode was kind of touching.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
It's hard because like you get it, like you don't like obviously don't want to be associated.
I just gotta grab. I just gotta grab my charger because I'm about to die. Just a second.
Yeah, do it up.
You obviously don't want to be associated with people that are like obviously mistreating staff and like taking advantage of people.
Yeah.
But then like have some like perspective.
Yeah. That's all you can ask for.
We in Kingston, like in my neighborhood, it's kind of like a different. It's been gentrified a little bit. Like I've lived here for a long. I can't afford a house in my neighborhood anymore, kind of place. Like
okay, I get the vibes.
Like I've been here long enough where like I'm not rich. I'm just old now apparently. But there's still like these like anti-gentrification people that are just like so like I get the aspects of it, like, and so I'm pro some anti-gentrification, like take care of people, all that stuff, but then there's some people that are so like violent about it, like there's a new store that popped up in our neighborhood, and they're like a corner store but super high end, really interesting stuff. They bring in a lot of like unique things from Toronto and Montreal, wherever. Like they bring in Montreal bagels, like all types of cool stuff that like, but it's expensive. Like you pay money for it. And somebody went on Reddit, and like our Kingston Reddit is like the big gossip like column for our whole city. Like Kingston Reddit is, if you want any news, you're on Kingston Reddit. Yeah.
That's oh geez. I mean, Reddit can be can really be that kind of space in almost any space. Like I don't even fucking look at beer Reddit. Like that's a degree that I can't handle. That like the level of toxicity that those conversations get to.
Yeah, some are great and some are not. And so like this somebody did a post in the Kingston Reddit, which everybody in Kingston reads, about this new little place and how they're all racist. And like I've met the people multiple times. It's like this adorable like couple that own it, and like just very nice, very open. Like they bring in like trans like people to do pop-ups. They support community. Like and like somebody claims to be a black person that was treated like in a racist way, and like people were immediately like, well, I'm never going back there, never ever again, like never supporting them again. And like if you look at the Reddit account, they had just made it the day before, like posted this one thing, like no credibility, but like people are just jumping on the bandwagon to burn the place down basically.
Dude, that's such a fantastically sad example of exactly what I was talking about with the Dominion City thing. I guess it wasn't as bad as that, but people were just jumping on them for something they hadn't even had the discussion about. It was straight like, oh, they're going to this thing, that means they support sexual abuse, that means they're cancelled, we're done with them. I'm like it's just like, yeah, like the nuance is gone. And I think in craft beer, we're such a small community. I think if we ignore that nuance and ignore the conversation, and I'm sure there's something, they probably had some points as far as like you said, should they be supporting McKellar in a time when maybe McKellar weren't doing the right thing? That's a wonderful conversation that should be had. But it was like, there's like a rush to cancel or to be like, I'm not buying from them anymore, from people who have a bit of a platform in the scene and stuff, and that really sort of rubbed us the wrong way. And I just don't think that's healthy. we're so small, man. Like we're like, what is it, 5% of Canada? Like, why would we sort of, what's the word? Not usurp, but like, cannibalize each other and really trying to push each other down. The crabs in the bucket thing. Like it's like it shouldn't be like that. It's typically hasn't been like that. But it's I think the interesting thing I've noticed, because people like Nate and I were very fortunate, we get to talk to guys like you, who are putting your money, your livelihoods on the line to create this stuff, and that's why we highly, highly respect it. And everyone we meet, as far as the ownership and people in charge of all the breweries, everyone is super cool and they just have really pure intentions. But the problem is like within the community itself, and I think that's where most of the sort of maybe miscommunication or people misinterpret things and take it a little
misguided efforts to take a stance.
Yeah, they mean well, right? You got to look. It's like assume positive intent at all times, right? So we try and do that. I'm like, okay, what are they trying to get at? Well, they're trying to say that these guys are associating with this brewery, they're kind of a shady. But I'm like, well, let's look at the facts here. Let's talk about it a bit more rather than go straight to the extreme conclusion. Not super fond of that. So we wanted to make a bit of a provocative podcast title that would get people to pay attention while still
It worked. You got Adam hooked.
I said, because I haven't listened to every episode you guys have done or anything, but when I saw it, I was like, ooh, this one sounds a
little saucy.
Yeah. There's some spice sprinkled on.
It's a bit spicy.
Sometimes you got to hit on with
more spice.
Yeah, man, bro. Sometimes you got to, without being a dick about it. We got to have these hard-hitting conversations and be honest about it. And but even for us, it's hard because what if we say something that people say, "Oh, you agree with them? You're cancelled now." I'm like, I'm not trying to do that either. We're trying to contribute positively and share the stories of awesome dudes like yourselves who are creating these cool companies and just doing cool shit that we respect, admire, and enjoy. And I
appreciate the positivity is huge. And I think that's like a way we need to lean into. I love the idea of Untapped, like the app Untapped. It's the idea is fantastic. What it's executed as is like a bit like it can come off a lot of negative with positive.
It's used so fucking terribly, so so much of the time it pisses me off a lot. I know Craig still loves it, and I'm glad and I'm glad he still uses it, and not to be divisive, I know there is value in it, and there are breweries who see value in it. I got really pissed off with it. I used to be a big Untapped guy. I deleted it 2 years ago, and there's so much of it that pisses me off now. And no offense to Craig, I'm not lumping him in with this, but it's become a very big hype chaser app, and really it's become like Reddit in a lot of ways. It's one of those things of anything that's a huge haze bomb gets boosted like crazy, and loggers get downvoted into the ground. People will just 1 star a Pilsner just because it's not hazy. That's a thing that happens on there all the fucking time. It's really frustrating.
It is, it's frustrating, but it has its pros. To track all the beers you drink, that's huge. Man, did I have
absolutely,
had
absolutely, and I'm not discounting that. Right. I'm not discounting that. No. I loved it. I did love it for that as a personal tool. But as an industry tool, it's really hit and miss.
Yeah. I think that's
one of those things.
I found that as a consumer, it became a bit of a chore for me just to keep track of it. I didn't mind it for that reason, but I felt like I couldn't just sit and have a beer. I did, when I was using it at the beginning stages, it would be okay, I gotta take a picture, I've got to upload it or whatever, and then I can just say where we're at now as a company is. I don't even know what we score on Untapped. It factors in basically either. 0.
What's funny is they all kind of average out, every single brewery, unless you're like a famous name that people like automatically give you 5 stars for. Like everybody averages out in the high threes, like 3.8, 3.9. Like that's like almost every single brewery. The average is right there because like it's just funny that that's a social like thing that's happened.
It's a little
but yeah,
weird.
like I think if for listeners, anybody interested, like what I learned a long time ago from somebody that was smarter than me, and I started doing on a wine app that I really like, is either don't score, like don't give a star, or if you want to be unbiased, like feel free to, like if you, I think especially if you feel qualified to rate something, do it. But if you're unsure, just don't score and write a comment. That's what somebody like was showing me a while ago, like a couple years ago, and it's such a revelation for me. And so now on my like this wine app that because I like to drink wine too, I'll just give everything 5 stars, and even if I don't really like it, I'll like write in the description like wasn't quite for me because of this, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so now it's a
So
memory for me.
you're one of them, Ryan, that I'd look at this review and I'd be like, oh, like 5 stars, doesn't really like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but like
Kind of
people's,
reads like a 3.
well, there's no option for no stars on this app.
I like that though. I've seen people use Untapped like that as well. Just kind of like use it as a log. Like I feel like I'm biased. I give everything at very least a 4. Like I don't think I really check in. Like if you look at my little thing, like they have like a graph. It's like just nothing. Then everything into like a 4, 4.25, 4.5, and I'm sort of done. So it's I don't even know why I do it, but yes, you're right. Like the rating is irrelevant to me, and I don't look. It's different between a consumer to then a brewery. If I was owning a brewery, I would go nuts if I was actually paying attention to what people said on Untapped, because it's bonkers. It's like Reddit level batshit. It makes no sense. People are just saying things, and they don't add up. Just what the examples you were saying, but like. It's really nice for a comparison. I used to have a Google Doc, a Google spreadsheet that I would literally copy and paste all my reviews. I'm up to this beer that the last one here tonight was, I think, 6,684.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
Last time I updated was in the 3,000. So I'm not going to paste 3,000 more things. I was doing it manually, so then I'd be like, well, if I had that beer, let me go and check my spreadsheet. And I go and search the spreadsheet. But now I can just search on Untapped. And I just find that, and I started using Untapped around the 800 beer marks. There's the first few I didn't really count, but I probably wouldn't be drinking those beers from 2011, 2012, 2013 again. Most of them probably don't exist. So yes, I find it just like a recording tool. It's handy.
As a personal tool, it's lovely. It's it's gorgeous for that, and for someone like yourself who is really like diligent and really wants to keep that log, it's perfect for that.
Yeah,
it's just as an industry tool, it's incredibly divisive, and its usefulness is really a subject of hot debate.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get the pros. I think the worst part of Untapped is the industry side, where they offer if you pay them, you could adjust your descriptions, and like you can have control of like what is like how your beers are posted. Not the ratings. I think it's just like right now we're marked as
reviews
nano.
go to the top.
Yeah, exactly. we could adjust things if we paid them money. Like
yeah,
right now linked with a nano brewery. We're a micro brewery, but like I'm not gonna pay them money to change it. Like
that's sketchy as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, like they're monetizing it. I guess they're smart to do it that way, but it's you could probably also argue that it's sketchy too. I know I'm never really like mad at the hustle, but because it's become this thing, this like when I first got into it wasn't a thing. It was just a way to document. My mate tried to get me on another app called Brewski. When I first started this, I worked at the Apple store in Toronto, the Eaton Centre. So I met my girlfriend, and my other mate there was into beer as well. And he was like, "Yo, download Brewski, man! Come on, check it." I'm like, "I'm not fucking using this app, dude. Like, this is whack. I'm not doing this shit." And then eventually, I got used to Untapped, and then found that to be a part of my OCD logging of the beers. I didn't mind doing it. Some people find it a chore. I didn't mind doing it. I'm a little OCD, so it helps, but. It started as probably that, and it's become this beast now that has a festival, and they've monetized it in all these different ways. So I mean, it's, I don't know. You can argue about the ethics of it being its importance to the beer community now.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like make your money. Like you've created a successful app. Yeah,
it's not easy, right? Particularly something like that. So yeah, man.
So what's off topic here, but what's you guys have been doing this for a while. What's your favorite brewery?
Ooh,
oh jeez,
hot topic.
Oof.
This is a controversial question.
There's only one right answer.
Where, like, is there a qualifier, or is it, because we're all going to have to answer this now?
Ooh,
okay.
Real quick though, just before you answer,
okay. Two answers.
I want to hear Adam what he has to say.
So two answers: Ontario and then beyond. So Ontario would be one, and then anywhere.
Nate, you go first.
You're putting
okay, so I had my anywhere. Now I've got to think for a second to divide this up with Ontario and anywhere. So if you've got one at top of mind there, Craig, you go ahead.
So if I said Ontario, because we just did a video the other day about the best breweries in Canada. If I would say Ontario, I would say overall, I would probably still have to say Brewer, because they changed the game for me. They were how I got into haze properly. Many different styles I tried first through them, and they had their ups and downs, I believe, as the quality. I think they're back on the upswing now. There was a bit of a time where they were sort of pretty hit and miss, but overall, they changed the game. Milkshake IPAs. With haze, with a bunch of things like that, with their big stouts and barrel-aged stouts and food and stuff in Ontario. And if I say outside of Ontario, I would say it would probably have to be either Other Half, like every single time I went to New York, we went to Other Half in Brooklyn, or maybe Foam or Burlington Beer Co. probably. Because Vermont, being that we're 2 hours from Burlington here, in the before times, once again, we were going to Trader Joe's every other month and hitting up a bunch of breweries and some friends and doing podcasts and stuff in Vermont. So that scene is big to me. But those guys were just always doing some amazing stuff out there.
That's it. So Greg, my one partner, his wife has their family's got a cottage in Vermont that they spent a lot of time in. So we did before COVID, we did a corporate retreat in Vermont. So we went to Burlington, went to Foam. Alchemist, and then I can't remember the other handful of breweries who went there, but
Boston's?
It was phenomenal. Like I can say that I can't remember that one. But when we were there, I've never with Hale Farmstead, we did that journey. Nice. I've never had a better IPA than I did in Vermont. Like it just it reinvigorated my love for double IPAs, because I feel like at first they were like I almost was intrigued by them, maybe from, I don't want to say gimmicky, but like, oh, double IPA, cool, I'll try that. And then eventually I got to a point when I was like, I'm not even sure that I really like a double IPA. And then we went to Vermont, and I was like, okay, fuck yeah, I like a double IPA.
Yeah,
different world.
I had a similar experience. Like my first trip to Vermont was was an IPA awakening for me. Vermont will always hold a special place in my heart. And like in the before times, like my wife and I would make trips down to Vermont like a couple of times a year, and it's like I'm really missing that. Like when I feel comfortable to travel internationally again, Vermont is one of the first places I want to go. But coming back to your question, if I say favorite brewery in Ontario, one that I'm going to say, just because I think they're still technically open, even though they're winding down now, is I think I have to say in Ontario, Half Hours on Earth. While they were still open, are probably one of the best breweries in the country. No one in Canada was making farmhouse stuff on that level, short of maybe like Oval in in Quebec and and maybe a couple of handful of others. But there's still one beer in particular that is just a religious experience for me as advanced drinker. Their farmhouse lager. That is one of the best beers I've ever had in my life, and they were such a strange brewery in that they make like these wild like bottled farmhouse beers that like that would just be absolutely life changing, and then at the same time they will also make these beers that are like this is a sour double IPA with marshmallows and with marshmallows and candy and grapefruit and all of these other fucking weird things that you wouldn't think should work together, but but for some reason for them it is just spectacular. Like their black is beautiful, while most of them were were a pretty straight up like 10% imperial stout. Theirs was one, it was a sour, it was a sour stout with sea salt and and all of these other things, like something that you shouldn't think would work but was just spectacular. Like there's no other brewery that did it like them. So that's my answer for Ontario. Favorite brewery overall, I mean, I could pick one in Vermont very, very easily, but if I'm going right now, or even at any point in the last year and a half, Cinquième Baron in like just across the river from me here in Ottawa, I think they are one of the breweries that are making some of the best shit in any style across the board. They make some fantastic hazy IPAs, some truly outstanding lagers. Um, like like the stouts that their brewer Dimitri can make, like just purely in his mastery of malts. It's unlike anything I've ever tasted before. So they're truly knocking it out across the board. So so that's my answer for favorite brewery overall. Right now, it has to be Saint Kimball.
You boys
Yeah,
are up.
Cool.
Yeah, your
for
turn
me?
now.
All right. Ontario it's hard.
Yeah.
I really like Burdock. I think Burdock just crushes. Like on beer quality, like they make some of the most consistently fantastic beers, I think, in Ontario. I like the wine stuff, like the wine grapes. They tie into a lot of their beers. They make some good sours, but I think like just on like a business and beer perspective, I really like Blood Brothers. They're big, like they've gotten big, but they've forged their own path. Like it doesn't seem like they're like following, like they prop their own yeast. Like a lot of time, it's like just the guys are like really fucking cool. Like they're in a like a they started in a warehouse, right? Like they don't have like a cool like Bellwoods is in a sweet spot when it started, right? Like the Blood Brothers guys are, I think they're just crushing it. So I'd probably choose them tonight. Maybe I'll think of another one later, and I'll call you guys in the middle of the night.
Hey boys.
Yeah, I changed my answer.
That's okay. That's okay. I like Blood Brothers as a choice.
Yeah, they're good. The rest of the world is even harder. Fuck, I mean, like Hill Farmstead just makes really good beer, but I feel like I'm too basic if I choose Hill Farmstead because it's too obvious of an answer. It's like voted number one on so many lists, but it is fantastic beer. The trademark is for a reason, man. Hill Farmstead. But that's not my choice. My choice is Dogfish Head out of Delaware. Dogfish Head was a huge inspiration for me when I was home brewing, and just like hearing their story about how Sam Calagione, or like big Italian name, how he like started his little brew pub, like basically on a homebrew scale. He'd brew a keg's worth of beer, and then he'd brew a different beer, a keg's worth, and he'd brew a different beer, a different keg's worth, and he'd just like be brewing nonstop just to feed his pub, and like everything on tap would be different things. Does that sound familiar? And so like a lot of my inspiration comes from his just seeing what he did and what could be done, and then just like snowballed from there basically.
That's dope.
Nice. That's a good answer.
Well, Adam, now you set this off. This is all on you, bro. You gotta bring this bitch home.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have great not
as good as our answers.
Like, no. I'd say like Ontario. As much as I would hate to say it, I have answered this question with Bellwoods before, just because I really, not that I think that like every single beer they pump out is the best beer I've ever had. Not to say this bad, but their Jelly King. That one time I had this like tangerine Jelly King that they made, and to my memory, that is just one of the best beers that I've ever had. Like,
Yep.
you know, there's kind of like those single beers that you might remember that like introduced you to what a beer can be, and that was one of them. Like that one was just like holy fuck. And I used to live downtown Toronto, so like that would be a place that I would love to go to. And if I'm in Toronto, that's one of the places that I enjoy hitting up. So as much as it's a cliche answer, I'd have to say that would be up there on my list.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, worldwide, that's a trickier one. Just because I like to drink a little bit of everything. But I really have to give some kudos to Sierra Nevada, just because I feel like not only I've had a ton of the beers, I've never been there, but to some extent, I have to believe that if they did not exist, then neither would we, just because they sort of, in my mind, like spearheaded the craft beer movement before it was even a thing, right? That was just them taking off at a time that there was a bunch of big beer companies where, you know, the experts would have predicted that we were going to get down to 2 or 3 big companies that were just going to make all of the beer for all of the states. And because of them, it sort of changed back to how it was pre-prohibition, where instead of market getting, you know, less and less companies make more and more volume, because of them, it flipped it the other way, where it was, you know, more and more companies making more and more different things because of the market for it.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, go them.
Love it.
That's a good answer.
Some solid answers we got here, boys. I feel like at this point we're sitting at 2 hours 40. It's pretty damn solid.
Wow. Yeah.
Was there anything else we wanted to touch on, or we feel like we've pretty much...
Let's just apologize to your listeners for that.
I think this was pretty engaging content right here, fellas.
Yeah, it really was.
Feel free to cut out all the stuff that wasn't that interesting.
you can whittle this down to 20 minutes.
You know what? They're going to have to listen to it, goddammit, because that's how we get down here. I think it was interesting. That's how we roll. That's how we do it. Now, what I want to do, I want to take the thumbnail. I'm going to take a screenshot of the screen here. Do you guys want to hold up one of the bottles?
Oh, God. How do I look?
Sure.
Gorgeous. All of you. Stunning.
You look awful, Ryan.
There we go. Yeah, get that closer to you. There you go. There you go. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Oh, that is stunning. Gorgeous. Boys, this has been a real fascinating conversation. Thank you both once again for your time. This is awesome. Where can everybody find Daft online, or yourselves individually, if you would like, whoever would like to go?
Yeah, so easiest way would be just our Instagram. So it's Daft Brewing Co. We've got our website, daftbrewing.com. And then I would say to reach out to us would just be through those avenues. So you'll find all of our emails and contacts just through those channels.
Perfect. Amazing.
Insta's best.
Insta's best. Perfect. So keep an eye on that. You guys are doing are you doing weekly releases? Is it bi-weekly?
It's pretty close to weekly.
Pretty close to weekly. All right, so stay tuned to the Instagram. Make sure you follow. Keep up to date. I love it. I'm just going to wrap this up. Stick around afterwards, and we'll wrap it up off air. But Uncle Nathan, where can everyone find you online? Hang on, no, we'll point this way. You're back up here now.
Yep. So on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, it's at NathanDoesBeer. You can also find me on the BAOS podcast blog. All of my blogs are a quick link at NathanDoesBeer.com. And you can also find me here, co-hosting BAOS podcast.
Damn right you can, goddammit. And guys, thank you so much for following, for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit the notification bell. How does that sound, mate?
Ding.
So you know when the new drops. Follow us on social media at BAOS Podcast, and check out the long-form audio so you can hear extraordinarily attractive individuals like Uncle Ryan and this way, Uncle Adam. Talk about craft beer, We go live, not live, I was going to say live. See, I get that confused. Everything goes public, 8 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday night for the podcast and the video. So make sure you tune in. Boys, once again, thank you all for your time. This was such a fantastic conversation. Beers were A1. You guys are beautiful. Appreciate you all. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers, y'all.